Hello, Internet! It is time for a completely unnecessary podcast for Wednesday, May 6th, 2015, alongside my bearded fellow, Ian Ferguson. Well, he's not my fellow, he's all your fellows. What?
Time for a trim, actually.
Time for a haircut for me. I'm Pat Contry. Ian, doing alright? Before that, though, on the show today, we'll be talking about Silent Hills is officially dead. We'll be talking about an offshoot of that, scumbag sellers of the week, plural, trying to sell their PS4s with a PT demo on them for $1,000. ESPN2 airing esports live on Sunday, August 26th in the backlash from that. The Yooka-Laylee Kickstarter. YouTube producing movies and series with YouTube stars in huge quotes. Nintendo giving an update on its lack of amiibo supply and maybe reprints on the way. The Avengers Age of Ultron review. Suicide Squad photo reveals. And your Q&A. So back to you, Ian. How's it going? That bad, huh?
How much do I disclose?
Ups and downs, gutters and strikes.
It's been a rough weekend for family stuff back home, but I am keeping myself together and I'm ready to do a podcast. Other than that, I mean, not a whole lot's been happening. I just came off a 10-day stint.
At rehab?
No, running the store.
Oh.
Yes, kind of retail rehab. Running the store while Treg was out of town, full of fun things like power outages, employees not doing even the simplest of tasks, and me ripping my hair out.
Can't afford it.
There's a lot of times where I realize, and it's pretty much every time Treg goes out of town, where I am very happy to be the manager and very happy I am not the owner, because there's just an extra level of bullshit that you have to deal with.
Sure,
when you're at the top.
Well, you get the big bucks if you're the owner.
Yeah, I'd rather take less money and preserve my sanity.
Yeah. So, I mean, we announced this last time. We're going to be at Too Many Games, end of June.
Indeed.
And I guess we got a huge uptick in sales for that event after we announced it on the podcast. So that's good. People will be enjoying our shenanigans there live, and we're going to love everyone that's going to be at that event. All the other people there. We're going to just give them a big old hug while we're there, Ian and I.
So such a big hug.
I put out a Flea Market Madness on Saturday or Sunday, so that was cool. And then I put out I had a Patreon video since October, but I put it live recently, and of course people were like, what? There are people I didn't enable the comments on it because I didn't want to deal with the bullshit.
Fair. And
so people on other videos were unfortunately commenting, like my appearance at Com Bravo. I feel bad now because I didn't think about that totally, that they were commenting on that video. And Com Bravo was going to have me out at the end of July, so I'm going to be there. So I did that, and it's just like, the Patreon video has been out since October. Every video I put out, Flea Market Madness, Ask Frank, Pat the NES Punk, just about has my Patreon there. At the end of my Pat the NES Punk and Flea Market Madness, there's a huge icon that says support my Patreon there. It's like, people just want a reason just to attack you. Fuck off. I don't have the energy to care about
a lot of people don't consider YouTube a valid means of making money, and that's dumb because it's
established. It's a almost $1 billion industry now where you have all this money, whatever.
Like TV and radio, it's still just a media outlet, and those people get paid.
So when it goes away, you can complain, but until it does, Other than that, though, I got a birthday coming up. We'll see if I'm going to celebrate it. I'm getting older and grayer.
I think I'm grayer than you, man.
That's only because of the beard. You don't have anything in your hair, really. It's all like concentrated right here.
It's a little slash across my mouth right here. I get a little gray hair and a little gray hair.
You got to get like the Keith Hernandez Just for Men. with Walt Clyde Frazier going, he shoots, he scores. Emmitt Smith with the babe. They're like, that means I'm gonna get laid because I have no white in my facial hair. It's ridiculous.
I like my grays. They are reminders that I've made it this far.
My ex loved the little grays I got on my hair because he said it's blending. It's just going to look because it's like blending in. You know what I mean? It's like sparse. So
you get salt and peppery.
Yeah, I'll get the Clooney. Yeah, people thought I looked like George Clooney when I was in high school. So I'll look more like Clooney. And he gets all the babes.
I think you'd need a serious haircut.
I had the Clooney haircut in high school. Everyone did the Julius Caesar that he had in high school during the Batman and Robin days in '97.
Actually, my hair now is more like my hair in high school than
Really?
yeah, than anything since.
My hair was never this long except when I was like 5 years old. It's always been short.
My hair hasn't been this long since high school.
I should get a haircut. Yeah, but yeah, it's probably the longest both our hair's been.
In quite some time, at least.
So we go back and watch those video game years clips with us, and we're like, yeah, that's even like a year ago. At least with your hair was a lot different even a year ago. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
But if we go back to see like the 82, 81 years that we shot like 2.5 years ago already, we're like, holy shit, we look totally different, both of us. We're
Well,
just
it's funny if you just like do a quick glance at like screen caps from all the different podcasts, you watch me degenerate further and further into bearded
you look
hirsute
totally
hippie man.
Well, from the first one we did in there, yeah, you were like short hair, no facial hair, like
Yeah.
and I'm there with my short hair. I was like the opposite. Yeah, I had short hair too. I think. Yeah, when I started. No, it was long when we started. We're just getting way off topic. Let's talk about something we brought up before about Hideo Kojima. It was rumored that he was gone from Konami. He was going to stay on for Metal Gear Solid. And when this happened, we both said, will he stay with Silent Hills because he's attached to it?
And I think I would hate to go back and be wrong, but I think I might have been a little bit over positive because I wanted it to happen.
I guess me too.
But I think we thought, hey, maybe he would stick around for Silent Hills. Or my thinking all along was, if he's gone for good, maybe him and Del Toro have laid enough groundwork that Del Toro and the team could at least push it through to completion within the realm of what Kojima would have wanted to have done.
Sure,
with
I
it.
mean, it got huge buzz, very positive reaction to the PT demo that took everyone by surprise.
Yes.
You have Norman Reedus, a big star from Walking Dead, attached. Del Toro, big director, attached to this project.
who's already been shafted on one video game and has now been shafted on two.
That's good for him.
So yes, Silent Hills is officially dead. And that sucks. Because I played the PT demo, and like a lot of people, I adored it. Some people did not like the fact that the puzzles were obtuse, or that the whole game was obtuse. I loved the fact that it was a very out there, weird sort of thing that you just had to figure out. It plays like a game in its own right, as you walk through and figure out what you need to do to get out of this looping hallway. And it showed a lot of promise for what could have been a truly psychological game.
Sure.
Certainly more so than past, recent Silent Hills. And a lot of people were looking forward to it. A lot of people were eagerly getting PlayStation 4s, and honestly, I know a lot of people who got PS4s, and the first thing they did was download the PT demo because that's what they wanted to play first. Anytime someone comes over to my house and hasn't played the PT demo, I put the controller in their hand and just let them walk around until they get scared shitless.
And most people had the reaction that was supposed to be.
Yeah,
scared, entertained.
And the jump scare is not even the scariest part. It's the setting and the way this weird setting kind of changes and morphs as you constantly loop around it. So it's gone, and unfortunately, Konami did. Everyone knew it was dead, but Konami put the official nail in the coffin and said, yes, it's done. What I think is worse is that Konami said in the same breath that they are committed to bringing out new Silent Hill titles. Why? Why would you want to bring out something that wasn't... Look, PT was looking to be a guaranteed hit. You had a fucking amazing team behind it in the three large people who were working on it. What if Konami puts out another Silent Hill game, which I find doubtful, it's going to be the same old crap we've gotten in the past years. The game's lost all of its smart psychological horror. It's really lost a lot from what it was. So my thing is, I don't believe Konami is going to be putting out many more games, period, after Metal Gear Solid 5. They have no money, they have no developers, no talent, and they have no goodwill anymore. No one likes Konami at this point.
This was shocking just because, you had a pedigree behind it, obviously.
Right.
You had a big star involved. You assume they paid Norman Reedus money up front to do motion capture probably well in advance.
I'm sure he did not do it for free.
No, Del Toro didn't do it for free. He's a busy guy. He's producing movies. So to get his input, there was probably a fee there too, or some sort of deal worked out. So they're cutting their losses in some weird way. They're thinking that this wouldn't have come out and made money even without Kojima involved. That's a whole other issue. But they thought this came out anyway. So what's going on? What sort of turmoil is behind the scenes where, you figure at least there's a demo out, and the demo came out like already like 5 months ago, 6 months?
Longer, probably. Yeah, I mean...
So this is in
before
development.
Halloween.
This is a bit in development,
Yes.
So all of a sudden, all that work's gone.
And it's upsetting because one of the main reasons I really felt like it could have been something special was, well, one, it showed that it could have been, but two, when it was canned, when Del Toro said that it wasn't going to happen, when Reedus said that it wasn't going to happen, they genuinely seemed upset. They genuinely seemed that like they were very much into this project. And I believe with the right creative team who really wants something to get done, you are going to get a good product most of the time. At least they're going to try, and if there's faults, you're going to be able to take them with the good.
Sure.
With Konami, I think what we're seeing is Konami transitioning from a console game maker to probably a mobile game maker or app maker. And my reason for thinking this is simply when you look at how they've trashed previous series that they've had in the vault that are classics, like Castlevania. When they took Igarashi off the Castlevania games that he was making for the GBA and the DS that were so popular, and they put him on fucking mobile dating sims for, months until he just was fed up and left. I think they're really dumping their money into games and applications that are going to be played on the the Japanese equivalents of things like Twitter and Facebook. The names elude me now, but I know there are. So it's sad.
So they really look at this as or at least you see this as they're stepping away from the console market entirely. At least the big marquee titles. We're just going to focus on this little shit that doesn't cost us that much money to make, and we're still going to turn a profit.
Well, someone can prove me wrong, and I'm sure they will. But I'm just thinking off the top of my head, with this off the slate, besides MGS5, what do they have coming out? What have they announced?
Well, you have E3 about a month away, so it's going to be very interesting to see what the buzz will be around that booth. And what's the store they're going to present. It's a little weird, which you brought up about saying, well, we're canceling this Silent Hill game you're excited about, but we're leaving the door open for future ones.
Yeah, no one cares anymore.
That's like saying we're going to cancel the say they came out with the Star Wars teaser, then we're going to cancel post production now. There's no movie, but we might make a Star Wars movie in the future. And it's like, what the hell were you doing then? What was the point?
That goes back to what I said at first. This was the game that everyone thought was going to, turn Konami around and bring them back as a game developer. Because let's be honest, Konami's been fucking shit for years. And by canceling it, Konami is now dead to a lot of people. Like I said at the beginning, they've killed. They have no more goodwill. It doesn't matter what they put out in the future. That's Silent Hill or Metal Gear. But without your key creative people like Igarashi and Hideo Kojima, who's gonna give a fuck? Gamers are getting smarter. They know that when these key people leave, you're not going to get the same experience. People didn't necessarily realize that when key people started leaving Square and, the Final Fantasy started to go downhill. But now I think with the internet and everyone paying attention to games a bit more, everyone realizes who's integral to making these things work. And with those people gone, what's the interest?
So you're saying, okay, it's more like following a director for movies,
exactly,
or following even, I guess, a band really, and then if the lead singer leads or the lead guitars leads, you're like, screw it, I'm not gonna stick with this.
Yes, it's no longer. I don't think people blindly follow series any longer. They're more interested in who's behind what's being worked on. Just like when Keiji Inafune left Capcom. People really kind of stopped caring about Mega Man games. And they started following what he was doing, which is making another Mega Man game under the name
Mighty Number 9.
Mighty Number 9. And people care more about that. So anyways,
it's depressing because it's Konami. This isn't like, this is like a huge developer that's been around forever. And now they're just sort of slowly going down the toilet.
Konami, fucked. Capcom, mostly fucked.
Sega,
fucked. All of our childhood favorites are slowly pissing away everything they have.
I guess you would have the same reaction when Jalico left in the mid '90s.
I was very upset.
But this is Konami. Jalico was fairly big. Konami was huge.
Yeah,
they were like one of the biggest third party console publishers ever, along with Capcom. All right, so all those people that love Silent Hills, you're not going to get it. And maybe you'll see a new game on your app. You'll see a Silent Hills game on your app this October.
A Silent Hills dating sim. Which nurse are you going to go after? This is a good time for us to lead right into our scumbag.
The scumbag bag seller of the week.
A lot more delay and reverb on that one than usual. So now with Silent Hills canceled, Konami is keen to wipe any evidence that this game ever existed off the map, which is fucked up from a video game preservation point of view. I'm just going to say that.
Last time on the podcast, we brought about what happens to these games on systems. They're gone.
So, of course, just like when Flappy Bird got taken off of the App Store, you had people selling iPhones with Flappy Bird on it and trying to get all this money for them.
It was a luxury item.
Yes. Now you have PS4s that people are trying to sell for like $1,000 or $1,200 that have the PT demo on it. This is scummy for a huge number of reasons. One, PT never cost anything to download in the first place. That's three times the amount of a normal PS4.
Sure.
But the thing that people need to realize, and I'm sure a lot of people do, is that if you get someone else's PlayStation 4 with PT on it, as soon as you want to use that PlayStation 4 for anything that is yours personally,
you have to
remotely yours personally,
change the
you're
login.
going to have to fucking wipe the system anyways, and you're not going to have access
unless
to it
you log
anymore.
in as that other person that give you the login.
If they give you the login. And that's a lot of trust.
I have another issue. This was downloaded millions of times.
Yes.
So, I mean, how does it make any sense that you're going to be paying a premium on something that any other person has on their PlayStation? You go over to your friend's house and play it.
The thing is, the reason I just want to comment on that real quick. I think what they're doing is they're jumping the gun by trying to sell now. I think where they're trying to hope to make this quote unquote money is, look, we're not that far into this generation. Plenty of people who want to own PS4s don't own them yet. It's the people I think who won't get a chance to get a download PT that they're banking on being stupid enough to buy one of these.
I'm just going to say this. There's about 10 or 20 for sale. There's been about 7 or 8 that have sold between $650 and $1,500. I'm calling Bravo Sierra those. I think those are plants to get to pump up the price and see to show the people that there's a value there from the sellers. Because one person tried selling one and it was bought with 0 feedback. I'm not buying it.
Mm-mm.
I ain't buying it.
You're not selling $1,200. You're not selling $1,000 PS4 with 0 feedback in PT.
Yeah, exactly. So, one sold for $1,299 with 15 installed games and 5 demos. So maybe they figured the 15 installed games is worth that much, not just the PT. But calling it rare, it's not rare. It's not rare, especially if Konami wanted to. They can say, "Fuck it, we'll put it back online and charge you $5." You know what I mean? Like, it's on literally a million consoles. That's not rare.
Konami won't, though. I mean, like I said,
but no, I'm just saying it's scummy all the way around. It's scummy all the way around. But to call it rare, it's not rare. It's digital. It's not rare. Nothing that digital is rare.
Yes.
You know, it can be easily distributed. It's not physical.
At some point, someone will crack the PS4, and PT can be on everyone's PS4.
Yeah, they'll figure out a way to transfer
5-10 years. I mean, it will hopefully come back. But, I mean, to me, I would never want to sell my PS4 for that amount with PT on it, because it does feel nice to know you have something, to know that you're preserving something that another company does not want you to have. That's kind of cool. You know, warning-wise, this is one of the first things that has been wiped from a marketplace, and you cannot re-download it. If you delete it, it is completely gone. That's how badly Konami doesn't want people to remember PT or Silent Hills. So, that said, yes, in the future it will probably be preservable. If you have a copy, it's pretty small, and I'd really recommend you just keep it on your system. Not that I think anyone listening who has it would delete it at this point, but certainly don't.
Yeah, like you said, there's going to be a way, whether it's 5 years from now, to transfer it to another system from the hard drive. Hell, a PS4 emulator is not out of the realm of possibility down the line. You know, stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, even if we're talking 10 years in the future, this will find its way back to people.
Konami will put it on a disc on a collection. You know, who knows if they're still around. They're not just making, like you said, like horror dating sims. You know, instead of putting out franchises people actually want, and not just, you know, one of their 3 whatever. It's just scummy. We haven't done a scumbag solo of the week in a while, but it's just Yeah, you're right. It's a Flappy Bird thing again, where it's just it's a game that'll be available again anyway.
Because it's gone, people are preying on on people's instinctive gut reactions. Oh my God, this thing that I liked is gone. I don't have it. Shit, I need it. But I still don't think they're actually selling.
But
I still don't think they're selling.
But if they liked it, why wouldn't they have had it? And plus, they got a heads up when they figured out that it was going to go bye-bye. They had like at least a week to download it still.
Like I said, we're not that far into this current generation. I think what they're hoping to eventually prey on are people who are just getting PS4s who couldn't get PT.
So this was a momentous occasion, at least for some people. We'll talk about why I think it's not a huge deal. So ESPN2 aired an esports event. They aired it on Sunday night, August the 26th. Kind of surprised a lot of people. I had no idea it was happening.
August 26th?
Oh, excuse me. It was April 26th.
April
26th. No, in the future, April 26th. And my notes are totally wrong.
Surprised a lot of people.
Surprised a lot of people in the future. Doc Brown came back and told us. So it was Blizzard's Heroes of the Dorm tournament. So there's a closed in beta, still in closed beta, Heroes of the Storm. It's their version of League of Legends or Dota. You know, how do you describe these games? They are overhead perspective, and you do melee attacks, you do they're team based, you do magic attacks.
I'm just gonna shut my mouth and not even try because someone's gonna fucking kill me over it. But I just don't know.
That's the genre though, for the most part. I mean, they're streamed a lot. They're very. It's one of the quote unquote more played esports games is that genre.
Yeah, from what I understand, they're team based tactical, and I think they involve capturing territories.
Whenever I look at them, I look like, wow, it almost looks like StarCraft from above or some sort of Warcraft sort of thing. But you have a character, you have to watch the health, you can recover health. It's not, you know what I mean. It's not like you're just going to die instantly. It's
probably fun, but.
Sure, all these games are fun. So it aired. I'm guessing that Blizzard sponsored this in some capacity. Makes sense to me. They were giving away money. It was colleges against other colleges. So people were excited about it. People that are fans of video games, and especially this genre, whatever you call it, MOBA genre, MOBA. They were excited about this event because it was on television. There were people that were sports fans that would flipping through channels ESPN2. They're like, what the hell is this? Why is there video games on ESPN2? So I'm more interested in talking about the reaction about those two sides. And I'm just say that obviously I think both are overreacting.
No, I mean, okay. I mean, you go ahead.
First off, if you're a fan of video games or esports, which I'm just calling professional gaming, or more comfortable calling that professional gaming, the fact that it's on ESPN2, you shouldn't care for a few reasons. It's not going to expose people that are watching ESPN2 to a game, and you're not going to draw in that many new fans to your game.
You're either watching the game because you want to watch the game, or you're a confused ESPN viewer who doesn't know what the shit is going on and doesn't want to watch it. And my issue with this is, you can say, yay, this is a victory because we have it on TV, but everyone who's into this stuff, whether it's fighting game tournaments, watching professional MOBA, whatever, it's all streamed. They watch streams. I don't know anyone who doesn't watch these things on streams.
This generation of gamers, we were talking mid-20s or even early 20s and before, they don't watch TV anymore.
No.
They probably couldn't find ESPN2 on the fucking dial.
I can't.
Remember the oldie days of the dial?
I'm 32 and I don't even know how to operate a cable box
They haven't heard
anymore.
of the dial.
Yeah.
They're too young. So, I mean, it's not a victory. It's not. Especially if there was probably money paid to ESPN2 to air this. You know why I think there was money paid? It drew a 0.1 rating, which was roughly 100,000 people. That is fucking terrible for a station like ESPN2.
Didn't one of the head guys at ESPN say he wouldn't ever air that shit anyways?
He said it back in the fall that I would never air this. Well, Blizzard might have came to him with a bag of money and said air this.
Money makes things happen, but that makes it even worse. So, it's not a victory. It's not like someone looked at it and said, you know what, this deserves a spot on television. It was bought and paid. Yeah,
so this is bad because I hope the money made up for the fact that advertisers are what run networks, advertising dollars. If they see something with a 0.1, they are not going to put advertising dollars on that show.
No.
So then ESPN2, if they're not being paid off, will be less likely to run that in the future. So it's not a victory. So I'll just say that. So for those sports fans that were upset about seeing video games on your channel, you have somewhat of a right to freak out being you're not used to seeing this, but don't think that it's going to take over your channel, because I don't see that happening either. It's not like you're going to start seeing this every week. It's the same way as like seeing, like they air like poker on ESPN2, but it's like twice a year only for like the major.
It's a couple of tournaments, yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's not taking over the channel. Otherwise, it's at like on 2 in the morning, you know, or ESPN 360. We'll run it like the third or fourth ESPN channel. Will run it. So I just think it's interesting. The ESPN affiliated radio host Colin Cowherd went over the top by saying he'd rather stick a gun in his mouth than be forced to cover esports. I don't think you're going to be forced to cover esports. I just don't think.
I also think Cowherd's a fucking nonsense human, but whatever.
He brought up Donkey Kong and Harry Potter in the same sentence during his rant. This is reported from Forbes, that time traveled from 93 and was aimed at nerds. So he's just out of touch.
Yes.
What we're going to get into this topic later is that there is crossover between sports fans and gamers. Maybe not for this genre in particular, more so than others. But it's not like if you like sports, you automatically hate video games or vice versa. That's not the world we are in.
No, and that's not the issue at hand.
No, the issue is the audience, your TV audience, not expecting or not wanting the content and ending up with a 0.1 rating. You know, it's like worse than like a Seinfeld rerun.
Sure.
That's going to be on randomly.
It's like going to Cartoon Network and finding a documentary.
Yeah. So people on Twitter back and forth. So there's an argument made that you know, esports professional gaming is growing, and it is. So ESPN could capitalize this and work it in the rotation. However, there is the alienation of your current fans. So you would alienate fans that want to just see, you know, Sports Center or whatever else, or hell, a guy like Frank who wants to watch, I don't know, a random, say they air like a random amateur wrestling event, and he wants to watch that or just see highlights. So you're going to alienate those sports fans, and again, you're not going to grow the audience from these gamers, because they're, again, like you said, they're watching it on Twitch, they're watching it streamed live on YouTube or wherever else. They're not going to go and find their TV. A lot of young people don't even have cable anymore. They don't.
I'm sure a lot of the people who thought it was a victory simply thought it was a victory because they thought it was cool, it got on TV, and good for you. But I bet you a lot of those people still watched it on the streams that they always watch it on.
I would parallel the reaction to this as if ESPN2 all of a sudden ran wrestling, like pro wrestling. You'd get the same reaction, like, what the hell is this? This isn't a sport.
Sure.
So that's why I wouldn't be upset, gamer people, about it. It'd be the same exact reaction. It's not a mainstream athletic sport, so they're going to be upset about it. So I don't see this taking off, like I said, unless there's a ton of money thrown ESPN's two-way to keep this going until there's a decent rating. But a 0.1 rating is not boding well.
Yeah.
Is that your phone?
Sure.
That's not boding well either. I thought that was your stomach at first.
That too. So, it's been a while since we've seen a Kickstarter go absolutely fucking nuts. But let's talk about Yooka-Laylee. So Yooka-Laylee is a platformer from some of the key members of the Banjo-Kazooie and the Donkey Kong 64 team. They did not want very much money to begin with, honestly, to make this game. And they quickly hit all stretch goals, and right now they're sitting at $2,198,406.
How much time? Less than a week.
They did most of that in a day. I mean, I remember watching before I even knew what it was. There were people on Twitter, updating by like every 5-10 minutes that they had hit another stretch goal. I mean, this money just came pouring in. So, what is it? It's essentially, if you look at the characters, Yooka and Laylee, it is going to be another Banjo-Kazooie type game. There's a lizard and there's a bat. The lizard is a male, the bat is a female, and
the bat's on the back of.
Bat's on the back, much like Banjo and Kazooie. Even the same structure. You know, okay. how they sit. It's going to be a 3D platformer, and they promise a return to the rare style 3D platformers of the Nintendo 64. It looks cute, and it does look colorful, and I think the character design, you know what, I didn't like it at first. It's grown on me. I think they're kind of neat-looking characters.
Sure.
I think the concept art is pretty great, and some of the ideas that they even talk about, like a pinball-themed level and whatnot, is very cool. What's interesting to me about this is they are touting the fact that it's a return to their old form. And they even mentioned that there are going to be collectibles for progression called pages. So what confuses me is I think different age levels maybe have different nostalgia for different things. Or, I mean, it could just be personal taste, but I mean, and Pat can back me up or argue me on this. When we go back to the N64 era, when it came out, games like Donkey Kong 64 and Banjo-Kazooie were not exceptionally well regarded among game players, especially Donkey Kong 64. Banjo-Kazooie fared a little bit better, but because they were these very... All you did was collect stuff to move on. You ran around these environments and you stressed yourself out trying to find these stupidly hidden items just so you could move on. The progression of the game therefore felt very stunted, unlike a Mario where you're constantly moving forward. Even a Sonic where you're constantly moving forward and progressing and seeing new things. There's lots of backtracking and hunting and pecking, and personally, I always got upset trying to play these games.
I'm always glad when these projects get funded, just because if people want it and they can't get it otherwise, here you go.
No, I'm very happy that
these are people involved with the original creation, and they're the
happiness of others on this has me more excited about it than I ever would have been, because I'm seeing a lot of genuine glee and joy out of it, and that's cool. I guess I'm wondering is, when did that gameplay style suddenly come back into fashion?
Well, it didn't. 3D platformers died out around the PlayStation era.
Yes.
And they died out for a reason.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of the love was the fact that it was new.
Exactly.
And most of them weren't well done. Mario 64 is considered a classic because Nintendo managed to do it right and help explode that 3D platformer genre. But after that, you run out of games that are considered classic in the 3D platformer realm.
The only one that I would say that I liked beyond was Rayman 2, because it also focused less on the collecting as a means of progression.
I think this is a case of not be careful of what you wish for, but maybe this is a little rose-tinted glasses.
Yes.
I loved playing this game when I was 10 or 9 or 8, on the 64. It's 20 years later, just about. Now let's play another 3D platformer since I haven't seen it, and they're going to forget, like you said, the shortcomings of the genre.
It gets monotonous very, very quickly.
Not just monotonous in terms of it's just, like you said, collecting stuff, going back and forth. Oh, you talk to this person, find this banana, find this key, come back to me. 3D platforming is when it's not done well, it's awkward. It's very awkward.
Because a lot of it, what I'm talking about, is not even keys or things like that. It's you arbitrarily need 30 coins for this door to open so that you can continue.
Well, I'm just saying, just the mechanics are awkward.
Yeah.
It's just hard when you're in the 3D mode. It's hard to gauge the depth sometimes of going. I mean, people talk about some of the worst parts in the Zelda 3D games is doing those platforming sections and, just getting around those areas. You know what I mean? And so, to me, that's not... To me, a platformer only works if it's, like you said, you're constantly moving forward, you're quick, you're very precise with the controls. And I haven't played a huge amount of the Banjo games, but I played a little bit just to know that it's not my thing. It's just not my thing.
No.
But if you grew up with it, of course, I like playing these games. But I think this could be the case of once you play it, you'll be like, oh, this is fine, but I don't see this like relaunching the genre.
No,
I just don't. I don't even see it being like the point and click adventure games where the genre wasn't the game. Like for this, the genre is more the game versus a point and click, or it's just the structure of the game. Does that make sense?
Yes. It does.
This is the draw is the genre itself, and that's a very dangerous thing to get into, because if the charm of that wears off, what are you left with? You're left with a bare bones experience, like you said, where it can get tiresome after an hour.
Because what they could have done, and I'm not saying that they're not, but part of the reason that these older games were collectathons was because of restrictions of hardware. You could only make your environments so big.
Before it had to reload.
Before you had to do more, before you had to create a new level, before your cartridge space or your disk space was just totally taken up. So you had to give people a reason to stay in one area and not blow through these areas. It's why games like Mega Man were made hard, to artificially create a longer game. What they could do with this is make larger levels without the collectibles and keep progression moving. You could create a gorgeous world for these two characters to explore. And maybe they will, but then if progression is still based on collectibles, then that becomes even more frustrating because you have more ground to cover to find these things.
Some of the stretch goals are interesting. And it'll be interesting seeing how they play out. Like a 2 to 4 player local multiplayer mode, a co-op buddy mode. I guess one controls the bat. That's gonna be interesting if it's one screen or two. A quiz mode. 4 more local multiplayer games added to the. I guess they'll add different modes, maybe like a Bomberman mode. I don't know.
Well, see, this is what I did like about it is like the people who are making it obviously want to have fun with it.
An N64 shader mode.
Yes,
they're also going to do the bad frame rate with that too. You know,
I mean, they're having fun with it, and like I said, the people who are excited for it, I'm glad you're excited, and I hope it turns out well. I just don't know why this needs revisiting.
It's not for us, obviously.
Yes,
it's for these people.
Sure,
it's the same way that these people wouldn't buy a Space Quest Kickstarter, but I would.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's the same thing. So I'm just, like I said, I'm just skeptical of just people getting tired of it. But hey, if they didn't get tired of Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie, they won't get tired of this.
Maybe it's one last trip down memory lane.
Sure. So this was an announcement, and we comment on YouTube news from time to time. It's interesting. Sometimes we get a lot of flack for it.
Yeah, we do.
But I don't think we care that much about the flack.
No, I have nothing to lose.
I do, but who cares? So YouTube is getting, I guess, into creating and producing movies and TV series with their quote-unquote popular creators.
Okay.
Me and Ian have not been asked it, by the way. So
you haven't.
So basically, the trend the past, I'd say 3 years has been, Hulu, Netflix, even Amazon Prime to start wanting to get into producing their own series. And I guess YouTube wants to follow suit. But they want to use YouTube creators. So we're talking...
Fine Brothers.
Vloggers that are huge that I don't know anything about, but, vloggers are usually the biggest people on YouTube besides...
They announced like 4 large names. The Fine Brothers, Smosh...
Smosh, who are big. I do know who Smosh. A prank show from Prank vs. Prank, which I haven't heard of.
No.
And then they want to do a murder mystery reality series. So far...
That doesn't even make sense to me.
So far, the only mainstream exposure from any YouTube person has been Fred. We had a couple of Fred movies on Nickelodeon. I think John Cena played his dad in one of them, which is actually fun to think about. So Fred was this guy who pretended to be a little kid, changed his voice, and then after 5 years, he was a lot older, so... That was the most quote-unquote success someone from YouTube has crossing over into Hollywood or the mainstream. It's interesting that YouTube wants to create their own movies or own sort of cinematic universe just because there's no reason to do it. It's a different medium, YouTube. It doesn't exist for TV sort of episodic content. It doesn't exist for movie content. That sort of stuff hasn't ever done well on YouTube and hasn't ever resided solely on YouTube. So what is YouTube really looking to do here? That's the question that I don't have an answer to right now until I see what one of these are. Is it to get more mains? Is it their attempt to break through and to make connections in Hollywood to say, hey, we can have these people be in movies? Then what does YouTube get out of that?
This is how I read it.
Okay.
One, whether it's going to succeed or not, I can understand YouTube wanting to make or to try to mimic this Netflix model. Why? Because it's working for Netflix. You rely less on ad. I mean, you.
It's a draw for Netflix. You have people for subscribers. But
yes.
YouTube doesn't have any subscribers though.
No, but
but they might want to.
But the thing that I think that they're trying to, because they mention it in one of the articles, YouTubers are not really bound to YouTube. They can go and do whatever they want. They can, and some of these people, if they get more popular on YouTube and they leave, they may not return to YouTube. They may not generate the revenue for YouTube that they once did. So by contracting these people in to do a show, a TV show, a movie that is branded by YouTube, YouTube is keeping their biggest assets close to them.
That makes sense if there was competition to take this talent from them.
Well, some of them doing the movies and things like that. I mean, I don't pay enough attention to YouTube. I'm literally taking some of these articles at face value. Sure,
but that's why it's a meant though. I meant there's no breakout stars. There really hasn't been any breakout stars at this point. It's not like a big YouTube star has gone off and been in a Marvel movie or even a romantic comedy. It hasn't happened.
Okay, sure, that's fine. I see
so the scripted comedy series from the Fine Brothers is going to take a quote-unquote satirical look at singing competition shows and will be produced in partnership with Manville Films. So, okay. The problem there is just that they're going to be doing a scripted comedy series. That's not the videos they are known for.
Yes.
That's the problem. Not saying they can't be successful doing that. that's not what people know them for. So whether or not they're going to gravitate towards that project because that's not something they're familiar with, let alone the fact that maybe they don't have the chops to do it. It's a weird sort of thing to hire. That's like hiring me and you and saying, okay, you guys do a
nature doc.
You do a decent podcast. Let's see you do a nature documentary. And it's just like, what?
What they're doing is they're saying, hey, you're popular and you're good at what you do, so we want you to do this other thing because you're good at stuff. I mean, literally, that's basically what they're saying. But, a lot of these people got popular because they were very good at one thing. That's why they're on YouTube.
And put out a lot of content and got Google support and whatever else from a network. That's fine. The Prank versus Prank will create a series of ambitious pranks, I guess, like bloopers or practical jokes with some celebrity guests. I'm not sure what that means. I can't picture it being mainstream celebrities, I guess, quote-unquote YouTube celebrities. So be prepared to see Egoraptor get pranked on or something. I don't know.
Good.
Graceffa, not sure what that is, will create a murder mystery reality series featuring a cast of other YouTube stars. This sounds awful.
Horrific. I read that a bunch of times, and I don't know what a murder mystery reality series
with
is.
YouTube stars.
Just the first part.
Put them in a house, and you're going to build it around them and see their reactions. And then Smosh is going to create a movie with Awesomeness TV. Will set their comedy series in a theme restaurant bedeviled by out-of-control kids and crazy parents.
Wacky.
Woo! Okay. The problem with all this is this.
It sounds like shit.
Even if this shit is low budget,
yeah,
you got to make that budget back.
Yes.
So let's just say the lowest budget of one of these shows. We covered the debacle of the Game Jam and how that cost. That was a 6 figures down the drain last year for players. If you do a scripted comedy series or a Prank versus Prank, and you're going to have crews and post-production, you're going to get people involved, these aren't going to be cheap shows. So you have to at least break even on these via YouTube views. YouTube views, me and Ian aren't raking in the big bucks here, folks. So for say one of these costs $100,000.
Yeah.
In order to make back that $100,000,
that's a lot.
We're talking, 1 billion views to make back $100,000 on YouTube, or at least hundreds of millions. It's not happening. It's just on one video, even a series, it may not happen. It's just not going to happen. So then again, what is this doing? Is this a loss leader? Is this something for the subscription service that they're going to roll out? I said, I brought up the possibility that maybe you're going to have premium content that only subscribers get. You're still not going to break even.
No,
I think it's a loss leader made to experiment at that. And a loss leader, for those in the know, is something that is going to lose money, but it gets people in the door. It's like the way I best describe it is when a supermarket puts food on for sale for
that's
99
where the
cents.
term comes from. Yeah,
the bread and milk still cost a ton of money, and that's what they're making their money on. That's where the expression comes from.
I could put out a popular game for $5, $3 less, take a $3 hit on it to get people in the door who are still going to buy the other stuff that's marked up appropriately,
or buy the DLC that's associated. Exactly, that's what a loss leader is. So we'll see what happens. It's just strange to say, oh, you're a YouTube star. It's going to mean you can do a reality show or do a movie or do a comedy show. It's just really strange.
My problem is a lot of these people live in this bubble where they honestly believe their own celebrity, and I think that's a problem because you get these ideas in your head, and they're just not going to pan out the way you want them to.
Not just that. Just because you're a vlogger doesn't mean you can act.
Right.
It doesn't mean... Just because you do a Kids React or Elders React series doesn't mean you can script comedy or shoot comedy.
No,
or
I think
direct comedy.
I think that shows, quite frankly, that you can't do comedy at all.
Well, it's a wait-and-see thing. Let's see if you can do it first. We thought we can get away from the... Pulse right back in. With more Amiibo news. This time, something that we predicted, and it's actually good news for consumers. Well, at least, I think it's good. I think it's good news. Nintendo basically came out and said that we're sorry.
Yeah, whoops.
We're sorry that we didn't produce enough Amiibos for you. And basically said that we're going to watch this more closely in the future, and we're going to produce more. Maybe not to the demand exactly, but we're at least going to try to do better. And they even hinted that we're going to maybe reprint some of the ones that are out of stock and out of print, which I said would be stupid for them not to. It's free money. They're going to be bought. So this is positive, obviously, that Nintendo's at least publicly admitting their mistake.
I just hope that I would love for there to be no marking, no differentiation.
No difference at all.
And that's already...
Not in packaging, nothing.
The the Animal Crossing, the Villager amiibo that got redone in Japan, has different hair than the original one. Like
Different mold or different color?
it was funny. They said he had amiibo pattern baldness. His hairline is literally higher than it is on the original one.
They probably to save money. They probably was a paint cost or something.
No, well, it's plastic molding, so maybe, but like it's literally higher than it was on the first one. So
they're saving money somehow.
I mean, it's much bigger than his. I mean,
That's
his forehead's
funny.
bigger. So I just hope that, the other ones are more true to form of the original casts and molds, and that they don't mark them as something different, because then you still have the problem of scalpers being like, I have a first edition.
Sure, but I think there's going to be a chunk of people that just want to actually use it too. Not saying most people, but there's going to be a chunk that want to use it.
Sure, I would go.
So they
out and
don't
buy,
care.
I would go buy those.
They don't care that your villager is bald or balding.
Right.
You're just going to buy it no matter what, and they paint some hair in it.
Yeah.
That's funny. This is what Nintendo actually said. We appreciate the enthusiasm that our fans continue to show towards Amiibo. Sales for the product have exceeded our expectations, obviously. We understand how frustrating it can be at times if consumers are unable to find certain figures, and we apologize for that. They go on about the demands of fans and consumers, blah, 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 blah. Our library continues to grow. Some figures will be easier to find than others. We are constantly looking for opportunities to reissue Amiibo and are already making plans to bring back some currently out-of-stock Amiibo figures.
Yeah.
That's good.
I mean, that's good. I mean, if you take Nintendo at their word, which I would like to, that pretty much confirms that we are going to see some of these characters back. And I would imagine that in the U.S., much like in Japan, it's probably going to be Villager, Wii Fit Trainer, probably Marth and Ike. The characters that were initially very tough to find, or the ones that still have current applications outside of Smash Brothers. Like, you can use Marth and Ike in Codename Steam, which is a strategy game, but that game came out after those characters were impossible to find. So,
well, unfortunately, though, the other issue is shelf space of retailers.
Yes.
So if you have up to 50 figures out at one time, you can't fit them all. So then I'm still praying that Nintendo makes a direct sales for this. I mean, that makes the most sense. And that if you really want to see your supply and demand, sell it yourself. That's and your profit margin is the highest too.
Get accurate metrics by watching your own web store. I mean, I said that on, I think, our very first Amiibo topic was make a store. Put a
warehouse
web
out in freaking Seattle, Washington.
Yeah. Sure,
Toys
R Us and Target can't carry all your shit, but you can. You can carry all your own stuff.
Get a staff of 40 to 50 people.
Yeah.
And just sell these day and night and ship them out yourself.
Right. Problem
solved. You're making money hand over fist. Everyone gets what they want, and then you can call back directly to Japan. Hey, Japan, we need more of this figure. We need more of this figure. Without waiting months and months to reissue, you can always have a supply stream.
Well, and I don't want you to forget to bring it up, so I'm not gonna. I won't play it as my idea, but I mean, it's something that you had mentioned before the podcast, and it's very true. I mean, I think a lot of this could possibly have come from shareholders in the U.S. being like, why aren't you making us the money when you can be?
Or any shareholders. If you're a shareholder in Japan, you'd be
sure. I mean, they're still affected by this, but
you're going to be like, okay, we're making money. We can be making more money. I'm seeing the scalpers. I'm seeing some asshole buying 300 of the same one and then selling it for 5 times the retail price, and people are still spending that money. Like you said before, that money that assholes are giving to their scalpers, they can be buying 3 or 4 Amiibo instead. Nintendo's getting that money then.
Instead of the scalper.
Every scalper that's successful, Nintendo's losing money on.
Exactly.
And they have to realize that. They're a business that makes tons of money overall. They have to realize that, and they're going to rectify the situation. So I'm happy about this, but I want that... Let's put it this way. I'm never going to rush out to the store to buy one of these things. Ever. It's not worth my time. It honestly isn't. But if there's a website that I know I can get it at retail, and maybe... shipping, I'll buy 2 or 3 maybe. On the site, there's 2 or 3 there. Shipping's reasonable. Shipping's like $7 for 3 or whatever. Priority mail. I'll order it. Why not? You know what I mean? But it's never going to be that I'm going to rush up, 5 in the morning and compete with some dick face that's driving 300 miles in a pattern to get all the gold Mario amiibos from all the fucking Walmarts or whatever.
Right. I mean, my thing is the interactivity so far with games is not enough to make me kill myself to get them. And I don't need more shelf candy. I have plenty of things on my shelf. However, it is fun for me to level them up in Smash Brothers. The little costumes that you get in Mario Kart are cute, and I'm sure they will probably find interesting, cute ways to use them in the future. And if I can order them online for the same price, I will probably pick up a couple a month just to have fun with them. But yeah, I'm not going to break my fucking back and put myself through the stress. That's the other thing. I can't handle crowds like that. I go freaking nuts.
It's just not. It's just it gets to the point where it's not worth it. We're getting older. It's just not worth it.
No, I don't even go. I mean, I probably collect records more than I do video games, and I don't even go out for limited records anymore. I just say fuck it. I buy the standard release unless I can order it.
So I want to get to the point where Nintendo's already way in the black on these amiibo. They can afford to make more that don't sell for a while, and then put it. If say they put out enough for retailers, either there's no shelf space or people want to buy more, then send it back to Nintendo and they'll sell it directly over the years and don't produce anymore. I hope it gets to that point.
Or put them out, and if they don't sell immediately, make another game that makes good use of them, and then they will sell again.
To give people a reason to get them.
It's still early enough in the Wii U's lifespan that we can see plenty more games that use these.
And they can always just add more free Nintendo NES games that you can maybe not
demos and stuff.
Yeah, or the full game. That's the cool thing about this technology. They can just add in whatever they want to be compatible.
Right. All they need to see is that you have that amiibo. If they decide they want to give you a full download or something,
give you a full game.
Yeah.
That's what's so cool about this technology. So good on you, Nintendo. That's good news. Fuck you, scalpers, once again. So we have a movie review. It's been a while since we've actually seen something at the same time we talk about, but we figured at least once every 3 years, this is a huge movie, franchise. And we have to at least do it for comic book movies because people love our opinions on comic books. I love people that say, "Oh, you guys should stick to talking about games." We will talk about whatever we want to.
Mm-hmm.
So Avengers: Age of Ultron came out, which originally I was really looking forward to just because the Daredevil series came out and that looked cool. You had announcements for Civil War, which is going to be off the hizzy when it comes out next year. And you have announcements for that stuff, and then Batman vs Superman t-shirt comes out, and that sort of gets your attention. Not saying it's good or bad, but then in between that is a huge movie called Avengers: Age of Ultron that's announced.
Right, all this stuff took the wind out of our sails, I think, immediately, temporarily for it. But as I got closer and closer to seeing it, I actually got more excited to go check it out because I had my doubts, but I also was fairly confident that the movie was going to turn out pretty good.
Sure.
And for the most part, I think it did. We go a lot of places with this. I'll start with this. I definitely think it was better than the first Avengers movie.
Absolutely.
I can say that, hands down, it was better than the first Avengers
I could rewatch this movie.
Yeah.
It's hard for me when even Avengers is on TV for free, like on whatever, Stars Network or whatever, FX. I watch it and I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to flip it off. It doesn't hold me. It just doesn't.
No. I mean, and I am going to try to stay somewhat spoiler-free here since the movie's only been out for a weekend.
I'm not going to go spoiler-free, but you can try.
Why would you do that to people who listen to the podcast? The movie
because
hasn't even been out for 4 days.
Because our spoiler warning is now, so they can fast forward 10 minutes or 15 minutes from now.
Whatever. I thought the addition of the mutants... Oh my god, I didn't say mutants.
They didn't really have a name. Oh, they had a name for them, but I forgot what it was. What was
the
it?
Children. They just called them the Children, I believe.
They called them enhancement.
Oh, enhanced
humans.
I thought Quicksilver was great. I thought Scarlet Witch was fantastic.
No, they were both good.
I honestly think that they were two of the... I think those two were integral to some of the more interesting scenes in the movie.
Well, of course. The whole plots were built around their character arcs,
yes,
so to speak, in terms of starting out villainous and discovering the villainy and then helping out as good guys. Like the whole arc throughout the film, their characters. Spoilers. I thought that the character drama that was way lacking in the first film was here. You can agree upon the execution, but at least on paper, the biggest one, obviously, you have Romanoff and Banner, their interactions. It came off well enough, and I like what they were going for. I absolutely do. Because in the first film, they even sort of, not necessarily hinted at, but they showed how terrified Black Widow was of Hulk in the first movie, who wouldn't be. And so it sort of carried that over into now you're getting behind the man behind the monster. And sort of, because in her own way, Romanoff is a monster herself. She was made into a monster from an innocent, child, which the movie touches upon that as well. There's a lot of nice themes here going on.
We'll talk more about that later, but I think if not exactly the execution, the idea of the arc between Banner and Black Widow was good. It added character to both of them. Instead of Banner just being the guy who hides or goes green, instead of Widow just being the assassin with no past. You finally saw a pretty good somewhat of a believable relationship.
I thought it was a believable
yes.
relationship.
Sure.
I saw the reasons why that Romanoff would want to get to know Banner. I did see that.
Yeah.
I did see that. I'm not saying it was executed 100% well, but it was there. Plus, they're both great actors, so
Yes.
Ruffalo's going to knock it out of the park, at least what he's given.
And honestly, Widow, at least in her portrayal in the first Avengers did not charm me at all, but I really liked her in Winter Soldier.
Oh, she was excellent.
And
Winter
she
Soldier.
really
The character
proved.
went well.
She really showed that. As an actor, as that character, she can shine when she's allowed to.
When there's material written for her,
Yes.
other than just being a hottie in a leather outfit, would give her something to do.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I also think that my pal Clint Barton was given a at least a breath of air. He definitely had more personality, more quips, definitely more backstory added to him. As a matter of fact, that was a great scene and whatever.
Well, it's going to be spoiled. There's a whole 15-20 minute sequence where they have to hide at Barton's old basically not his old house, his house out in the Midwest with his wife and kids. You discover he's married and has a wife and kids, which is like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and Romanoff knows it, and Fury knows it, but the other Avengers
which
don't.
Plays back to the first film where Romanoff says she's compromised because she's Barton's friend.
Right.
It wasn't exactly romantic, but there was obviously a connection there, and that's why Romanoff is friends with Clint. And the family makes sense. And the wife was played by Linda Cardellini. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, nice to see Linda Cardellini in something. Interesting. From Freaks and Geeks and, other things.
So,
it humanized the heroes more. And actually, it was interesting to see the other heroes taken aback that he had a family because none of the other guys have a family.
No, they don't.
So it was like Captain America doesn't have a girl. He hasn't gotten laid probably ever. You know what I mean? He's so straight laced, and
they all seized up at this picture of a normal life existing behind his secret agent work, basically.
And so they tried to make him the grounded character,
which I think they did fairly well.
They did fairly well. They even had him admit during the end sequence that this is all ridiculous. I have a bow and arrow and I'm shooting at robots with a bow and arrow. It's like, thanks. I'm thinking the same exact thing.
That whole segment with Scarlet Witch where he's like,
make a decision.
The city is floating.
Yeah. I
have a bow and arrow. There's robots out there.
Yes. That was very, very good. A lot of it was just, like I said, the interactions were more grounded. Each character had something to do more. Captain America had a hell of a lot more to do in this movie, even though he didn't have a huge arc himself. It wasn't just him disappearing for the middle of the movie and just literally sitting at a desk in the fucking helicarrier for half
I think this time they gave him slightly less just because he's coming off of Winter Soldier was a big movie for that character. Another thing that I liked was, and don't get me wrong, I love Robert Downey Jr. It was not the Iron Man. Avengers 1 may as well have been an Iron Man movie.
To an extent, you're right.
This time they spread the love around a little bit more, but Robert Downey Jr.'s character was still fantastic. And it's not that I ever found him grating, but I actually found him more charming in a smaller dosage in this movie.
Well, I think because he was a large proponent of the plot with Ultron and then later Vision, it gave him more of a there was more of a dichotomy going on and actually sowing the seeds for civil war in a way where he wants to protect humanity, and that's where the motivation is for the Ultron program. So it wasn't just, I'm a happy-go-lucky, it's like, okay, we're finally seeing something else here where
he's a conflicted individual.
He's very, very, you can say he was conflicted in some of the Iron Man movies. No, this is real conflict where he's going against the wishes of his teammates, and doing this Ultron program. Let's talk about the villain himself, Ultron. Overall positive. Of course, it's not the Ultron in the comics.
But
it makes sense in how it was created.
Yes, and it was better. I remember when we saw the trailer, I was like, what the fuck, that voice? They definitely did.
They did put some modulation
They did put some modulation on it. It sounded a lot better. Vani, my wife, actually loved the portrayal of Ultron. The reason she liked it was for a couple reasons. One, He was not strictly cold and mechanical. She liked the fact that he had far more personality.
A little bit too much, but I think
she felt that after years of Ultron arcs where he doesn't have that, it was just refreshing for her to see. You have to understand, she's far deeper into comic books than we are. Two, she liked that the Ultron was, and this I can't, I mean, I don't know this, but I trust her on this. The Ultron, the movie was called Age of Ultron, but it's not based on the recent Age of Ultron arc. It couldn't have been.
I didn't know there was a...
That was about 2 years ago.
Okay.
2-3 years ago. I mean, there had to have been a script in
that
the
just
works
needed
for
a cool
this.
name for the movie.
Yeah, so they used that. But she said that the Ultron in the movie was actually bits and pieces of a lot of, like, greatest hits Ultron arcs. So
fun.
she enjoyed that quite a bit.
I enjoyed the portrayal of it. It was based upon the fact that he basically had Stark's personality. That's why he was swarmy and had the quips. Like I said, a little bit too much of I'm doing horrific things and still cracking jokes while I'm doing it. You need some menace, not just from the actions. I can't stand the fact that all these movies have robots moving their mouths when it's not needed. That's just a nitpick for me. That if it's a robot, the mouth does not need to move at all. It doesn't make any fucking sense. Going back to Transformers. That's a minor nitpick.
Okay.
That's just minor.
No,
but
it's fine, but I understand that nitpick. I think in this movie, though, it's okay because Ultron was striving to become more human.
sure.
I don't think the moving of the mouth was that big of a deal.
Then maybe they should have started where he couldn't then and then gave it to him later then. You know what I mean?
Well,
Like,
with a bit more time between his ramshackle first appearance and
Yeah.
his. I like the fact how he kept getting bigger and bigger.
Yes. He's what, 3 or 4 forms in the movie? We're gonna talk Vision a little bit. I liked the portrayal. I did not like the fact that they kept him with pupils and irises versus they could have just CGI'd it out that easily. Maybe it was the actor saying, I want people to see my eyeballs. Maybe people would be afraid of him. Every Vision always just the white eyes. I love the Vision character. I think it's very interesting.
No, a lot of people do. I think he was fantastic in this.
I think it was good. I just don't like the fact that it was like a little bit too much like Venom in Spider-Man 3 where, okay, he shows up for the last third and it's a little bit too much rushed. It was a little bit too much. You know, the introductory scene, Vision gets introduced. It was like, all right, this is a scene that should take 10 minutes. We're going to do it in 2. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, you know, it was just one of those things.
This is actually kind of one of the negatives I have about the movie, and this is going to come up later, but is that supposedly there's about an hour cut from it. Now,
an hour, I would say this. I think that's probably a little over the top. I would say easily 25 minutes.
Sure. There were scenes that went on for too long, and there were scenes that were definitely too short. And there were jumps that occurred, and while any normal moviegoer could follow them, they were still sort of jarring. I can't even think of exactly any...
Oh, I can.
Okay, sure.
The whole Thor subplot when
Yes.
it disappears
Yes.
is like... It's literally 2 scenes that are both like a minute long, and it's just like, what the hell? What? Why do you even need this? You just cut it completely, or let it breathe. It's like, what?
It was
what are you
simply
doing?
to show that he saw a vision of what the gems were going to become, but like you didn't do it well. The other thing was there was that whole, with the miracles, with the
Enhanced
with
humans.
the enhanced humans, when they're talking about laying under the bed, and they're talking about seeing the bomb. And it says
We're talking about the brother,
Stark.
We're talking about
Yes.
Scarlet Witch and
Yeah. And they talk about seeing the bomb, and it says Stark on it, and they want the revenge. Obviously, a moviegoer can piece together that, okay, they realized that maybe it was bought from an arms dealer, but it's never said explicitly. There was also never any confrontation, really, between them and Stark, and that never tied up satisfactorily for me.
There wasn't even like a 1-minute thing after the fight saying we understand or whatever.
No, right.
That's a good point.
It was just dropped.
It was. That's actually not a bad point. Obviously, they had to realize at some point that, well, it was pointed out to them that that wasn't what they were fighting against anymore. It was something else.
Right,
but you're saying no, that their direct venom against Stark was never cleared up.
If you're going to spend that much time on direct venom towards someone, constantly having to hunt him, talking about the origin,
you're absolutely correct.
You can't just. I mean, yes, we can figure it out, but you can't just expect us to do that. That's it's not satisfying.
To me, it's like in Iron Man 2, how the whole subplot about maybe Stark's father did steal the technology from the Russian guy.
Yeah.
And then they really never went anywhere with that. You know what I mean? It wasn't... Stark never came to terms with it, right or wrong, that his father... That the whole vast fortune that they had and everything might have been built on some form of thievery. It wasn't even, you know what I mean? It wasn't even tied up in a bow saying it was false or not. It just was left out there. It was just, so that's a good point that you should tie this up cut out a minute of the fight, tie up this shit.
Because you don't
know.
you don't need more than a minute or 2 minutes to do
Yes.
that.
And you're already, I think the movie was like 2 hours 25 minutes, which is for a blockbuster running long. You know, obviously back in the day that would they never hit 2 hours, but now that people expect bang for their buck for a $13, $14 ticket, they want to see it. They want their 3 big battles. I think in this movie there was only really there were the Hulkbuster Hulk fight was huge. That's a whole other conversation. That was done very well. I thought, you know why that was done well? Segue, because Iron Man tried to get the fight out of the city. He even said that explicitly before throwing him in a building. No civilians in that building.
Right.
You think that was a direct response to Man
I
of
feel
Steel?
I feel like it was, because there was even there's another moment where it was like floor's not clear, and they moved to a different building, or they cleared out the civilians or whatever it was. But basically, there were 2 scenes, not just
Saves
one,
the people in the elevator,
2
too?
scenes in the movie where they go out
They
of their
try to
way to
save
show that, hey, we're superheroes. We're not trying to kill anyone.
They tried to evacuate the entire city. Spoilers, like it's lit up in the air. They wanted to evacuate it, not just destroy it. Directly, it's not a response. That's the responsible thing to do if you were a hero. It was just a wreck shit.
Yeah,
you're saving people at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But the Hulkbuster scene, very well done. I know you like the Hulkbuster scene.
I love the Hulkbuster. I mean, I love the fact that he used the cuff arm on him and dragged him around, and I mean, it was good. I thought the scene was good. The action in the first half of the movie, though, did seem different to me than the action in the second half, in so much that the first half of the movie, we got a lot of quick cuts, close cuts, shaky cam shit, and then
There were
towards
smaller fights.
but then towards the end of the movie,
it was wider.
we got that good Winter Soldier, good Godzilla type, pull the cameras back and let people see what's going on type.
Well,
of shit.
there were larger area fights too, though.
Yeah,
versus being in smaller buildings.
Like I said, I do think the Hulkbuster scene was done well. I love the Hulkbuster armor. I love the Hulk. It was a bit frantic for me in parts, but I liked the pinpoints that happened during.
I will say this. I'm going to spoiler. I think it was kind of ballless to kill off who they killed off. I think it lacked balls to kill off Quicksilver and not kill off Hawkeye. Especially after the buildup of this is what's at stake. I have a family. I have kids. Now you could say it's a red herring that it would be the obvious thing to kill him off. No, I don't think it would have been the obvious thing. If you had Hawkeye die trying to save that kid, holy shit! This Marvel universe now means business. Everyone's lives are at risk. Versus a guy that just started fighting on the good guy's side like 25 minutes ago. I'm still glad they killed someone off, but they went with the safest person to kill off at the end of the day.
I just don't think you kill off any of the main cast that quick. Maybe in Infinity War Part 2, if they want to shake things up. Hawkeye's integral whether or not we like how he's portrayed in the movie. That doesn't mean that I wasn't upset with Quicksilver's death, simply because you just introduced the character.
Yes.
It means less. And as the movie progressed, he got cooler and cooler, and his arc, I thought, was great.
Yes.
As was Scarlet Witch.
Both of their arcs were absolutely good.
Now,
I'm a Quicksilver fan. I like Quicksilver.
So do I. But as Vonnie put it, the Quicksilver death did make the Scarlet Witch character, in her opinion and in mine, a little bit better, because Scarlet Witch in the comic, her downfall is her stress, is her sadness, is her anger, is her anxiety. So in that last moment when you needed something to happen, when you needed a reason for that moment, when you needed a reason for that core to drop, when you needed her to start fucking shit up,
that's what it was. Yeah, but just imagine if they gave them even another half movie to develop their bond, and then you do it. It would have been even.
Sure, I'm not arguing with that.
You know what I mean? Like, say they kill him off in Civil War or something. Yeah. Then that's when Scarlet Witch. You know what I mean? Like, I understand they needed that moment, that emotional moment, but there was emotion there. Sure. There definitely was emotion there with me, but again, imagine if these two were together further.
Give it another, Give it another movie,
and then it would have been people would have been sobbing in the theater. You know what I mean? Like, there would have been like waterworks happening.
I mean, whereas, when you killed him in this, it's like, oh, that's a fucking bummer.
Yeah, but, it's like, it's sad for that character, but like I said, we just got to know the character.
Right.
So it's still a sacrifice. Then again, the sacrifice made no sense because the freaking Vulcan cannon would have ripped through his body and killed Hawkeye. Anyway, that's all decision. I won't talk about that though. But it was still a worthy
It's a
sacrifice.
superhero movie, man. There's going to be some issues with it.
Yeah, or why Thor was backing away from the bullets when he could have destroyed the ship coming. Anyway, whatever. It was interesting. It was a good movie. I liked it better than the first one.
Absolutely.
Everyone has had something to do, but apparently not everyone was satisfied with the portrayal of Black Widow for some reason.
Well, I don't think it's for some reason. I think I can understand.
Well, there's
why.
a reason.
So, as the resident liberal who's going to get shit on,
I don't think this is a liberal issue at
no.
all.
Well, I'm just saying. I mean, people are obvious. I think certain listeners are going to be looking to pounce on me for what I say here. I think it's been largely blown out of proportion. I will say that.
Well, what happened? Josh Whedon left Twitter over backlash.
He didn't though. He's come out and said I have the link. He came out and said he hasn't. He said I mean, as a liberal, as a person who says that he is a feminist, he has said that he has dealt with radical feminists since the day he got on Twitter. He has dealt with infighting among liberals. He says he sees it in conservatives. He says it's common. He said that doesn't bother him. He said that if he's going to go be creative, he needed to leave Twitter and focus on something because it was a distraction.
So Josh Whedon, but he did get attacked by, I guess you can call them, are they third wave feminists?
Just radical. I mean,
neo-feminists.
I would just say more radical.
Okay.
Certainly more radical.
So what were they upset about though? They're upset that Black Widow was captured?
No, I don't think that's
the romance subplot.
Nope. I think it is, and I think a big part of it is this. Black Widow in the first Avengers movie was not portrayed very well. They also, in the first movie, hinted largely at her Red Ledger. Her
clearing up
her murder file and her past.
Sure, just her murky past. Yeah.
Right. They didn't really touch on that at all in Winter Soldier, which is arguably the next movie she did. I mean, really, that's...
You don't want to count Civil War.
Civil War. That hasn't happened yet.
I mean, Winter Soldier. You don't want to count...
I'm counting... I said Winter Soldier.
Okay.
That's arguably the next movie they did. And she was great in it, and she was a strong character. Still not a lot of backstory. So here's what we have. We come into this one, right? And she gets her flashback. And this is where I understand...
Which is probably the most consequential flashback out of all the characters.
Yes. And this is where I kind of understand the problem, but I think it's being I do, but I think it's being blown out of proportion. It depends on how you view the movie. The biggest problem is you get this flashback. It shows her. She's at school. She's
at the training school.
She's training to be an assassin, right? They show her shooting at targets. And then they show a guy with a fucking thing over his head.
Shooting at people. It's like
shooting at people.
It's like Born Identity, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
They show her shooting at people. And they don't really explain anything. What do we get out of this? Is we get the scene with Hulk and her, and she says she's a monster and she can't have kids. And give me a minute to finish my train of thought here. People are upset that Black Widow is being portrayed as someone who is basing her worth on whether or not she can have children. The way and if that were the case, I can understand that because of all the promise of backstory. The one clear thing, the only clear thing we get out of this movie is that she was sterilized at the end of her training, and that is the defining trait of her in this movie.
That's not your argument. That's the feminist argument.
No, I mean, this is what I said. Well,
this is what you got out of it?
This is what I got out of it. This is partially their argument, and I'm going to tell you where I differ from them.
Okay.
I'm not exactly pleased with how that went down. I'm not. But that came up because that was a direct response to Banner saying, as they're arguing, Jesus Christ, I'm a monster. Hell, I can't even have kids.
Mm-hmm.
And she counters back with,
I can't either.
I can't either. And she goes into it, and she explains it. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that. My issue is that it was the only thing they brought up. Now, if they had done that, but they had also brought more of her backstory in, if they had said anything else about her backstory, I wouldn't have cared. This is the one thing that they chose to bring out about her backstory in this movie.
Well, okay.
No, you can go on. I don't have much more to say here.
It's not. Well, no, they brought out the whole thing where she had her whole humanity when she was very young ripped apart from her.
Yes, but
forced to be a killer. Literally, they were killing the other girls that couldn't go through with the acts. We're talking the nightmare scenario of the 10-year-olds and 10-year-old African kids that are giving guns and are told to kill people.
I think a lot of it.
I mean, we're talking heavy shit here.
No, I know.
And so that was sort of to me was the cherry on top of the stripping of her humanity.
I think that's the problem, though.
But that wasn't to me the focal point. That was all this shit, and then finally this.
Well, and
and obviously that's so visceral. Just because I mean, if you tell most women when most women, at least that I've heard of or known, it's extremely traumatic if they find out they can't have kids. Sure. It's extremely traumatic.
But let me clear my name here.
All right, clear your name, clear your ledger.
So I do understand that disappointment. However, I believe it is more a product of a couple of things. Editing.
You think? Okay.
Okay. Editing because of, second thing, this is a fucking ensemble movie. Ensemble movies make it incredibly difficult to really beef up the backstory of any one character unless, say, they're new, like the twins.
Okay.
Okay. So I think that what possibly went wrong here is that it was not done on purpose. It was that this scene was seen as pivotal, and because of time constraints, they were not able to get to other things they wanted to do.
So was it the fact that it hurt her so much that she can't have kids that was the bad part of it, or you thought that was the focus of it? I mean, let's put it this way.
The focus and the fact that she seemed to be putting a lot of her worth on it.
I don't know that. I've only read probably a handful of comics that has her in it. We're going back to her showing up in random, probably Captain America books from the 90s, early 90s, when she was, quote unquote, still, I think, bad at the time, fighting against, like, Diamondback, I think, if I remember correctly. I'll just say this, that I would expect any hero that... let's put it this way. I wouldn't expect that to be out of character for any female hero that... You know what I mean? Like, it wouldn't be like you would react emotionally, especially when you're having a conversation with someone about it.
Right.
About that.
Which is why
it's not like you're going to say offhand, well, you can't have kids. I can't either. You know, it's like, it would be like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, but that's how it came up, and that's kind of why that's why I said I don't think it's that big of a deal.
I absolutely don't think it's a deal.
I don't want you to take it that way. I don't want the listeners to take it that way. I really don't think this is a huge deal. Like I said,
but obviously a lot of people do.
I understand why. I just think it's short-sighted because, look, yes, the Marvel Universe has never portrayed her, at least in comics, particularly well. That's an endemic problem of comics. It's being fixed. I don't think it was a purposeful move on anyone's part, especially not Joss Whedon, who, I mean, wrote the best Kitty Pryde there ever was in Astonishing X-Men. I mean, he can do strong characters when he wants to. I think it's just part of the story.
I thought that was the most human moment she's had in any of the movies. It was the most real emotion she showed in any of the movies, the character. It was the most the character's been given to play with. Not just, oh, well, you know, my ledger is now clear. You know, it's just like, all right.
This is how I would have liked to have seen that scene go down. Banner doesn't even have to mention he can't have kids.
Well, it comes out.
Banner can talk about how he's a monster and how he can't be with her because he doesn't know what he wants to do with her.
Sure.
She goes, I'm a monster. The flashback, boom, kicks in, shows her doing some dirt, and she talks about all the fucking people she's killed. And then we get some fucking backstory on her past as an assassin.
Yes.
You didn't need to focus necessarily on that point.
But from a narrative standpoint,
it would have worked either way.
No, it wouldn't have, just because we know she's killed tons of people before. She said that herself in the movies. So you needed something else. Now, where do you go from there? If it can't be, well, I was sterilized, which, let's put it this way, because this has happened before. Governments have done this. I mean, hell, it's happened in some states in the U.S. where they sterilize people that they feel shouldn't have kids anymore,
sure,
for whatever reason. It's fucking horrific to sterilize someone.
It is.
So I think breaking down someone that's killed people, that has shown absolutely almost no chinks in her armor, save from getting scared by the Hulk rampaging in the first movie. Who wouldn't get scared with the Hulk rampaging after you? Yeah. Doing a move like that, while you may not agree with it, it gets the job done. I still think she's a strong character. To me, it just showed, all right, she went through some deep shit as a kid.
And that's at the end of the day, that's why I don't think it was that. I don't think it's a huge deal because she shows she's a strong character. She kicks fucking ass at the end.
Yeah.
She was shown as a strong character in Winter Soldier.
I still think it's unbelievable how she's kicking all his ass with just 2 metal electric rods. She's still doing it.
She gets captured. I don't think the damsel in distress thing is really a damsel in
It's not a damsel in
distress.
distress.
No, it wasn't. She went down there. She got some shit done. She got caught. She got rescued. She went out and fucking ripped the fucking cradle out of an airborne truck. I mean, you couldn't have given her that last scene with her on the motorcycle. You could not have given her a more empowering scene.
Yeah, you're getting if you get captured by a villain that any one individual members of the Avengers would have trouble with, and you don't have any superpowers yourself. That's not a damsel in distress. You got bested by someone that's way more powerful.
Well, you signed up for a hardcore spy mission, which is her specialty, to go down and get some information, and got caught and got locked up for all of 10 fucking minutes.
Yeah, so that to me. So I think it's interesting just because they attacked the guy that has stood up for strong female characters and everything he's done.
Like I said, I mean,
was Buffy, like you said, the stuff he's written in comics.
Yeah, his Astonishing X-Men arc is I mean, it's all about Kitty Pryde being stronger than any of the other X-Men.
He's the guy who did Firefly as well, right?
Yes.
Strong female characters in that. Yeah. I've seen some of the episodes of that. So I mean, let's put it this way: he's the wrong target for you to go after. If you quote unquote want to go after someone,
go after Marvel. Go after the stereotypes of comics set for 50 years. But Whedon didn't do this.
Or how about don't threaten someone on Twitter? How about that? That's a start too.
Well, yeah, don't threaten people. That's for sure. But Whedon did not do this to piss someone off. I literally think it was just how the movie played out.
Just how it played out, and if you're gonna attack someone, if you're gonna bully people on Twitter, just check yourself before you wreck yourself. There's no reason to do that. Speaking of wrecking yourself, we had a couple of photos come out from the Suicide Squad movie, which I'm still kind of in disbelief that they're making. So the big one was there was a Joker picture that was put on Twitter, almost out of nowhere.
Yeah. So. So I mean, everyone knows it by now. It's the Jared Leto picture. With the fucking grills and the
not grills or caps.
Yes,
caps in his teeth,
and the Game Boy Play It Loud scream, and the green hair, and all the tattoos. And the backlash to it was fucking huge. I mean, there were people on my Twitter feed, trying to defend it, and
people went after me when I made fun of it. I said it looked like a carny.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like, okay, I mean, different aesthetics for different folks. So I thought, and the majority of people thought it was fucking awful. So here's the funny thing, and I don't know what story to believe here. First of all, it was the Joker's anniversary recently. Okay. And the Jared Leto picture had all these fucking awful tattoos.
Ha 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 on the shoulder. A jester hat over a skull here. Damage on the forehead.
And the traditional Joker smile on his arm. So after all this backlash, they came out and they're like, guys, it was just a promo picture that we dropped in celebration of the anniversary of Joker's creation. Those tattoos aren't going to be in the final film. And I'm sitting here thinking, okay, it is the Joker's anniversary, but this seems like a really fucking convenient excuse.
And that seems like the worst PR ever to say that.
Yeah.
With your first reveal of a huge iconic character that people are literally, this guy Jared Leto every week has been tweeting or Instagramming oh, now my hair's dyed, now it's blonde, and people are like, oh, what's next? And then this gets revealed. It's like, oh, here it is. What? He's got a J teardrop tattoo? That's hardcore, yo.
Right. So I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, what to say about that, really. But they did say that those tattoos are not going to be in the final film. That doesn't really matter because Snyder's DC Universe can blow me.
Well, did you saw the picture of the Suicide Squad come out?
I did. But I mean, I glanced at it.
I don't know half the characters.
I just glanced at
it. I know two. Obviously, Harley Quinn's the big one. I think the actor's going to do a great job, I think. I don't like the fact that she has pudding tattooed on her leg because it's like, okay. It by itself, it's fine, but the fact that we saw this Joker tattoo thing, Okay, does every character need a tattoo of like stuff
Their
they say
catchphrase.
on them?
Yeah,
you
and
know.
that leads me to believe that what they said about the Joker's tattoos was not exactly truthful.
Yes.
Because now you're seeing that same sort of shit on some of the other characters.
So you think this is a big backtrack, meaning that they're starting to film it now that, okay, we have time to not show his tattoos or cover it up, or did they tweet it out the fact that it wasn't, or where did they say this?
I don't even remember where I saw it. I read it somewhere. I don't remember where. I mean, Jesus, this was weeks ago. This is definitely...
Well, it's less than a couple weeks.
This is an older topic, but I mean, I don't remember.
I just don't see them going 360 on something like that because people are going 180. 360!
Yeah.
Going to 180 on something like that because they're trying to do this universe that's quote-unquote edgier and grittier. We talked about the Batman vs. Superman teaser, which we're not supposed to talk about, but we will because we can talk about whatever we want. But this seems to be the step in the same direction where this is the hardcore, gritty universe.
Well, it would be that's the thing. It would be 100% in line with the
Snyder universe.
The Snyder
no
universe.
subtlety at all.
No.
And if people say, "Whoa, is he that subtle as a clown?" Yeah, a hell of a lot more subtle than having "I'm a
Damage.
murderer"
Yeah.
on his head.
Right.
That's a hell of a lot more subtle.
I laugh a lot.
You see, the whole point of the Joker is that he's literally a clown on the outside, and then he kills you. Now, it's a cliche now, but it wasn't when he came out.
Right.
That's why the character is so beloved, and why he's one of the most famous villains, because he's the exact opposite of what he appears as.
Right.
And some people tweet like, "Oh, well, Two-Face is really subtle." That's in his name, Two-Face. Joker is a Joker. It's supposed to be a funny character.
Right.
That is a little more subtle on the surface.
Whatever. I don't care about subtlety. I mean, subtlety.
Well,
yes.
I care about it.
I do. What I'm saying is you can't argue away Snyder's fucking ham-fistedness with fucking everything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it would be one thing if it was just for this movie. Hey, for the Suicide Squad, we're gonna be completely over the fucking top and just run with it.
This is connected.
Fine, but it's not. It's connected. It's perfectly falling in line with everything else he's done, and it's just not anything I have any interest
Having
in.
kung fu, wire fu fights, and fucking Watchmen, which went against the entire grain of the movie, supposedly portraying quote unquote realistic superheroes like the graphic novel. No subtlety at all. He just doesn't. He's almost there, but then he misses it at the very end, and it goes away. Like he gets it up to like 80%, and then doesn't understand after that.
Well, he missed it entirely in Man of Steel, but
Like he knows enough to be dangerous. That's the expression I like.
let's move on. We're treading familiar ground. Let's not get ourselves worked
Well,
up.
it's only every 3 months you can go off on Snyder. Is that what it is?
Well, no, we went off on him recently. I don't need to
I
don't need to get worked up over him.
Q&A time on the CU podcast. This is from at JPC Animation. If you can go back to one moment in gaming history, where would you go?
I would go back, and I think for a lot of people this might be surprising. I wouldn't go back to a truly retro, period, because I've experienced all that. I mean, I know it. I would go back to the late 90s when importing was huge.
Huh.
Because at the time, there was still a ton of games coming out in Japan for systems like the PlayStation, Saturn, Dreamcast that never made it over here. And while I definitely did import and probably imported 20 plus titles in my time, it was at the end of it, and there's definitely titles I look back on now and I'm like, man, I wish I hadn't missed those. So if I could go back to that period of time with the money that I have now, which is not a lot, but more than I had then, I would go back and I would import a lot of the titles that were expensive that I wished I could have gotten, and more to the point, I never would have gotten rid of my imports the way I did. I wish I still had my import titles.
You also could have pulled a Biff 10 and could have cornered the Magical Chase market and bought like 50 of those.
Not interested in being that guy, but no, like I would have loved to have gone back and gotten some of the weird Square, RPGs when they came out, like the driving RPG and the weird tunnel shooter they did.
Driving RPG? Never heard of that.
I used to know the name of it because I wanted it to come out here so bad. But yeah, there was a lot, and I would have liked, if we're gonna talk fantasy, we're talking time travel anyways. I would have liked to have gone back there with knowledge of Japanese, so I could have played some of these RPGs. So that's it.
So you're not only time traveling, now you're like putting like a Star Trek chip in your ear to
A
be able to
second
translate.
language.
I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna be cliche. I'm gonna go back to like 81, like the height of the arcades, just about 81. Just because I experienced the arcades in mid to late 80s. Barely remember it. At least the mid 80s. My father leave me alone while bikers were around in Spaceport and Woodbridge Center Mall. But if you go back to like 81, it's still brand new for the most part.
Sure.
You have young kids getting into arcades finally. And I cannot imagine the energy of being in those rooms and having basically a new media and discovering it with the sights and sounds, having high school kids and young kids, girls, boys, whatever, playing these games and thinking that this is the start of something that we're not going to appreciate. First of all, arcades within 15 years will be gone.
Yeah.
But just this is the start of something brand new, and people thought it was a fad. Right, video games still. They still thought this is going to be dead in a few years. And no, it wasn't. And I just would love to just have the energy of being around that.
Fair enough. I think...
of seeing the reaction when like a new machine was unveiled, like Miss Pac-Man, like people were probably like, holy shit. I mean, we were there and people were lining up to play Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter, but Miss Pac-Man eclipsed all that. It's just, I wish I was there for stuff like that.
You make a good point, and that would have been a lot of fun, but I would like to have jumped a little. 81, 82, 83, 84. Seen the progression. 81, you got to remember, the arcades are going to be fairly barren still. They're there. There's going to be machines. But 84, you're going to have a glut of excellent titles. Just all the good shit is starting to really hit.
All right, so I'll say 82, 83 then.
It's really starting to hit.
When you have the zenith of almost all coming together, all the major hits coming together.
Yeah.
At the height of it.
I would have loved, and I think I talked about this on the video game years or maybe previously on the podcast somewhere, but going back to an arcade in Japan when Tower of Draga came out, and people were like chaining notebooks to the machine. Wow. So that, because Draga, the entire game is a cryptic clusterfuck. I love it, but it is. And each level has clues, and like they would keep notebooks near the machines, and players would write down notes, and every time they figured out something, and
the person could.
That would have been really fucking cool to have experienced. To be like, okay, now we're up to level 10 with all treasure chests. I'm going to be the guy who figures out level 11. That would have been fun.
This is from Dat Ass is my boss. I think it's 2 weeks in a row getting it in there. Has there ever been an educational game you legitimately enjoy playing? I'd say any good education game is fun. The only bad ones I remember, at least from computer class, was when like the letter has to fall and you have to press the letter before it hits the ground or something. It's like there's no.
Those are typing trainers more than
anything,
what I mean. But yeah,
I would say. Obviously, I didn't play them a lot as kids, but I can imagine other people having fun with Carmen Sandiego. Oregon Trail is educational to some extent. Hell, Lemonade Game was fun. That taught you some logic and some planning. There's lots of games that are educational that people don't realize that are educational. Games like the Civilization series are very educational, learning about human history and culture.
Yep. And
learning logic and how to plan, how to react. I think any future world leader should be required to play a game of Civilization successfully to know how to fucking manage shit. That's the whole other conversation. So those games are educational.
For me, I agree. A lot of educational games are great. I can go back and still play things like Number Munchers and Word Munchers and have fun. Oregon Trail is a lot of fun. Educational to a more narrow degree, but still educational and definitely a good playing game. My all-time favorite educational game, though, has to be Where in Blank is Carmen Sandiego. Because you learn shit, but those games are straight-up detective games. And they are fun as shit to play. I've actually... It's funny. The reason I kind of wanted to answer this question is because I've been so obsessed lately with going back and playing old Carmen Sandiegos that I've actually started trying to find them for my Apple IIe on eBay for a reasonable price. Because
I'm surprised you can't play them on a website. Is there like an Apple II website you can play them all too?
Probably, but I have an Apple IIe, and back in Buffalo, and I all I buy for my Apple IIe that I have back in Buffalo is educational software that I find amusing.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of just a hobby.
So yeah, I think like you said, the ones we remember are all good. Otherwise, we wouldn't remember them.
Right.
Educational titles.
Yeah, the ones that kind of sucked would be like, I know some people might argue it, but like Math Blasters, where you're just answering like cold hard math questions for like 10 in a row, and then it's like, fire the scissors at the balloon. Okay, you get points. Math Blaster was better, but there were educational games like that where it's just like, do this rote repetition math. And here's a stupid mini game, and now do more math.
Jazz Jackrabbit, you ever play those? I never played them, but
Jazz
I used
Jackrabbit
to
is
see
not
them.
educational.
Oh.
Jazz Jackrabbit was a Sonic the Hedgehog ripoff.
Oh, was it?
Yes, with a gun. Did you ever play any of the Learning Company games? Like
No.
Treasure Mountain?
No.
Oh, those were
Those were
fantastic.
Were those on all of them, or just Commodore?
PC, mostly PC.
I can't remember. I mean, I used to love the B. Dalton bookstore. I always tell this story once in a while. The B. Dalton bookstore had a separate computer section, like
Yeah.
towards the middle of the back. At least
No,
in the
I
wall.
remember that.
Oh, you can sit down on the computer. I remember seeing. God, that's why. Well, that's why I have 100 key punch softwares in my garage, because I used to love those. It's a whole other story.
All right.
At 1000 cc.
Has a game ever helped you cope with a rough time in your life? If you care to share, which game was it and how did it help?
I have a prime example. You can go first.
So, yes. And I actually kind of wrote about this a little bit on the Patreon blog. I find great peace in games that require me to grind a lot. First-person dungeon crawlers, roguelikes, things like that. I mean, we're talking the hardcore RPGs. These games are really hard, and for most people, that shit would be stressful. But for me, the pure repetition of leveling and grinding and watching stats go up as I weave stories about characters that have no story behind them because they were roll your own characters. These games have helped me keep my mind off of things immensely during my grandmother's passing last year, who was very close to me, and my grandmother's sister, my great aunt, who is currently in the process of passing away. And I literally find them to be incredibly calming experiences. The music in these games, for whatever reason, is usually very mellow and calming. The scenes, even though I mean they're hard and you're slaying all these monsters, a lot of these dungeons take place in forests and meadows and things like that. It's at odds with how hard the games are, but everything else is very peaceful to me. Mm-hmm. There's rarely any huge story about a massive, demon overlord coming in and killing a bunch of people. It's there's an evil and you have to stop it, and you do that by climbing 40 floors in this dungeon. Can you do it? And I just get myself lost in it for hours at a time.
So my story is very specific, and I'm not sure how much in depth I'm going to go because it was fairly emotional. I'll go into it. I don't give a shit. And I actually referenced it in my Panic Restaurant video from back in 2010, was that? So in that video, I referenced having video games help me cope with stuff. So there's one story I told about Street Fighter 2, I think it was. So we're talking, I'm 11 or 12. I think I was 12. 92, 93. Now you know how old I am. I think it was like 7th grade, 6th grade. So we're talking 7th grade. I was introverted. I had my big thick glasses, out of shape. I had friends, but it wasn't like I was popular. I just was friends. I kept my nose clean. I stayed out of trouble.
Sure.
I mean, I got picked on a little bit, but not as much as other kids. I stood up for myself, for the most part. So an incident happened where kids in a classroom made it was a thing where I think people were making like video productions for like a project, and everyone was watching them. So a group of kids, they were like the cool kids. They used to bully some other kids, but they didn't usually target me too much for the most part because I was kind of friends with a couple of the group out of like 2 out of 6 or whatever. One of those sort of deals.
Yes.
Where you're not friends with all of them, but enough to keep off your back.
You're friends with one of them who does his best to keep him at bay.
Maybe not, but they don't fuck with you directly.
Yeah.
So they did a video where one of them was mocking another kid that they used to pick on named Thomas. And the kids in the classroom didn't realize it was going on. Even the teachers didn't realize it. And it was one of those things where it was like 2 classrooms combined.
I remember this story now.
Okay. And so I must have said across, "Oh, they're making fun of Thomas." And then the teacher heard me. And so the teacher, I think, then consulted with the other teacher and got them all in trouble. And so I, quote unquote, ratted them out without even realizing it. It wasn't my intention. I was just telling someone across the room. So one of the kids, Joseph, wanted to beat me up because of that. That day or the next day, they had this meetup thing. where I guess at the park it was gonna be a softball game between everyone in the grade, 6th or 7th, whatever it was, and I was invited. I was gonna go. It was at the same playground where I was talking about my friend Kevin, where he lives. So we're talking like 10, 11 blocks away, and so he threatened me, and he was going to probably try to beat me up, humiliate me in front of the entire school. And I knew this, and so I wasn't gonna try to fight him. Because even if I won, I wasn't. What would be the point, Yeah. So, I was ashamed that I didn't want to face him. Then I got a phone call from Christine. Christine was a girl that lived 5 blocks away that I was friendly with my entire life, and I got a call from Christine, trying to goad me to come out, knowing that this guy wasn't trying to be up. And I got a call from her. Never got calls from girls when I was in grade school. That was unheard of. And the one time I got a call was from this girl trying to sell me out and get me to come down to get beaten up in front of the entire grade. It was the only time that this girl, Christine, called me. And I had known this girl since I was like 5 years old. And I'd been on the bus with her every day of my life going to school.
Nah.
And I'll never forget the tone of voice with her saying, "Oh, why don't you come out, Pat? Why don't you come out?" Knowing that she wanted to see me get beat up by, maybe this was her fucking boyfriend in 6th or 7th grade. So, what can I do? No one on my side, pop in Street Fighter 2, play it that afternoon, and just drift away, knowing that call me a coward, whatever else, but I wasn't gonna walk into a fucking trap that I knew was a trap,
right?
And nothing would have happened. You know what I mean? And no good would have happened either way. They would have ganged up on me and beat me up. Would have made fun of me the whole time. No good would have happened for literally the entire grade of my school, like 50, 60 kids. So it's one of those stories where it's obviously it sticks with you. The good news is that he never tried to attack me afterwards. Like either he realized it was stupid or maybe he got over it, this kid. And after that we were okay. Like it didn't really come out. We never had it out because of that. Mm-hmm. And then I ended up beating up a kid in front of the entire school the next year, which the other kid started. So after that, no one would touch me anyway. I went into a rage. Hold this story. The whole point is that was me coping with that rough time and getting picked on with video games. But that Street Fighter 2 story will stick with me my entire life. Christine, if you are listening, fuck yourself for trying to goad me into a fight for someone that you were friends with for like 6-7 years. That's just despicable to do that. That hurt me more than the fucking idiot bully trying to beat me up, actually. All right.
At She in the Leaves. What's your guys' opinion on Ico and Shadow of the Colossus, and do you think The Last Guardian will ever be released? Quick answer to the latter. Excuse me. No, I don't think The Last Guardian's ever going to be released. I hope...
They keep saying it will be, though.
I hope the fuck it gets released. I just, at this point, even if it does, with all the delays, I don't know that I have any faith in it being a good game. That said, Ico and Shadow of the Colossus were both fantastic. Ico more for its visual style at the time, I think. It was a fairly unique, puzzle game. Escape from the castle. With the spirit, the lady, in tow. It's been a minute since I've played it. I'm sorry. Shadow of the Colossus, on the other hand, I think is definitely one of the best examples of imagination and just, insane design coming out of nowhere. No one expected that game when it came out. Even the previews couldn't really prepare you for what that game was like. A game that has, 16 enemies in total, but they're these huge monstrous behemoths that have platforms and armor that you grab onto and you swing, and the sense of scale was perfect. And you climb that first Colossus and you're on his back and you're at the point where you have to stab him in the head, and you realize exactly how high up you are. The game doesn't fuck around. There is no loss of sense of scale here. It's nearly vertigo-inducing. And that game just proceeded to get better and better and better from that point. From figuring out that you have to literally run up the blade of a Colossus's sword as it hits the ground to make it up his arm to get on him. I mean, Shadow of the Colossus is something that can't be topped because anything that tries to top it is simply going to be seen as a copycat or inferior. You can only do that game once.
So, in terms of Last Guardian news, I guess the last news was a couple months ago that Sony wants to register the trademark for it.
Well, that's good.
Well, they want to renew it. You have to renew trademarks
Yes.
every, whatever it is, 3 years or 4 years, whatever it is. So they have filed a patent for it. Would they have to do that if they weren't still going to come out with it? How long has this been in development? 2009 was it?
It was announced No, I think it's been longer. I believe it was announced when the PS2 was still semi-relevant and the PS3 was just coming out because it was supposed to be one of the PlayStation 3's killer apps.
Okay, I thought.
So,
it was,
I mean,
I
this has been...
I was thinking 2008, 2009.
You could be right,
like
but I like I said, I seem to remember the PS2
So
still
it was never
being...
going to be a PS2. It was supposed to be a PS3. I do know.
No, I know that. What I'm
Yeah.
saying is, though, like, they were
working on it way back.
Ico and Shadow of the Colossus were out, and they were teasing this as being the third part in the series, essentially. They're unrelated, but they're related, in terms of artistic vision. So this was supposed to be the third entry in that trilogy, and it was supposed to come out on the PS3, and now we're through the PS3, and we still haven't seen
The irony of it, if this is going to come out, it's not going to be a huge seller. It'll sell, but it's going to be still like a cult sort of thing. It's not going to sell like Gods of War. You know what I mean?
No, I think maybe. Well, I'll disagree with you there. I think with all the build-up behind it, the fact that Ico and Shadow of the Colossus have entered the public conscious because of the remasters.
Public consciousness, we're going a little bit far.
No, people buy that shit as soon as it comes into the store.
Okay.
On the PS3.
I'm talking like this is not going to be like Metal Gear Solid. Not even close.
If it comes out for PS4, I guarantee you it would sell like hotcakes to PS4 owners hungry for exclusives.
Oh yeah, okay. If it's only for exclusive, okay, that's a better point. If there's nothing else to be exclusive, this is a big one then for that.
I mean, they have them, but I think this would be a bigger deal.
But versus the amount of time they're putting in development of this, if it's really been 6-7 years. I hope it's only like 2 or 3 guys working in those 6-7 years to for their.
I'm not saying they're going to recoup their money. I'm just saying that I think it would sell better than you're saying. That's all.
All I think is funny that they haven't said it's dead. It's always been okay. It's back.
Well, no, I believe they did officially kill it at one point and then bring it back. But I could be wrong on that. I mean,
it's still around now. Yeah, that's what's important. They have a new trademark they filed for it. So for the Last Guardian, unless there's another Last Guardian game they're making.
So I really want to jump on this one. This is from MSU Hitman. Thoughts on GameStop only taking certain retro games and not the rarest ones with its trade-in program. Holy fucking shit. This is, I believe, still rumor.
It's still rumor, and it's based upon, there's been screenshots and captures
of
and pictures
rumored
of the
buyback
list
trades.
of the buyback and price charts for what they're charging per system.
I believe I actually saw an article saying this, but I couldn't find one in time for the podcast when we were sitting here to link, so I'm going to call it rumor at the moment. However, it wouldn't surprise me. And let's just pretend it's not rumor for a second. I find this fucking hilarious. Because just weeks ago, GameStop was saying, we're going to train these employees for on-the-spot inspections of games so that we don't take in, fucking fake carts and this and that. Yeah. And no, you know what their fucking on-the-spot training is? Just don't fucking take them. Which is dumb. Because, okay, now we have them as online only. And 2, now they're not even going to sell rare or hard-to-find titles, which makes them useless. And there's been a lot of people want to say that the speculation is, especially after the leaked sheets, is that it could help normalize the prices on the market. Yeah, it's not going to do fuck all if they don't take the rare games. If they don't take the games that are $80, $100, $120, $150, I mean, I could understand wanting to shy away from something like a Flintstones at Dinosaur Peak because of what it is, but not taking Earthbound? That's one of the ones that they are rumored to not be taking, expressly.
Was Chrono Trigger on there even?
No. And actually, my Lincoln asked me that, and I said no, because Chrono Trigger right now is between 80 and 100, and my guess is, if this is true, they don't want to take anything over $100.
I think it's funny that people think prices normalize when there's a set price point, which is absolutely insane to think that that's what normalizing means.
Yes.
No, things normalize when there's a natural bidding process. And so when you start stuff at 99 cents and see where it ends up, That's how a market, or that's how prices, quote unquote, normalize. When people aren't forced to pay arbitrary prices on secondhand aftermarket items.
I think people are assuming that if GameStop has these and they sell them for a certain price, then all mom and pop shops will follow suit.
But if it's a high price to begin with, as we've seen on them, these are eBay prices just about. So then how is that normalization? That's normalization to the eBay price.
No, that's simply continuing on with the status quo.
Exactly. That's not normalization. That's
I had people. I'm sorry. I had people ask me, "What do you think of these prices? Are you scared?" And I'm like, "No, because it's
online only too.
This is the same or more than what we charged for it. This is less. They're charging less than I thought they would charge, but that doesn't make me quake in my boots. They're online only.
It doesn't. It only makes sense as a loss leader if they expect people to use that credit for new games, and then they'll make the money back eventually and break even on selling the games, but then they got to ship them out. It's not getting past pilot. This will not be nationwide.
No,
I don't see this happening nationwide because they're also going to discover that, hey, if I work at GameStop and you bring me a box of games and there's a little Samson in there, I'm taking that little Samson and I'm going to give you something out of my pocket for it. That's what most employees would do if they have any knowledge of it.
From what I understand, that's a fairly common practice actually at GameStop. Sure. Is we don't take this, but hey, I'll give you this money for it because there's no manager on duty and who the fuck cares?
Some managers wouldn't even give a shit. Like who cares?
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt your business. Whatever. So I think it's interesting. We'll see how it plays out past the pilot. If it ever, like I said, the pilot could last 6 months.
I think this only hurts them. I mean, I think this further damages their ability to actually be competitive.
I still don't think they know what they're in for yet.
No,
I don't think they realize what like you said, Chris Kohler asked them, "What are you going to do about games that are complete?" And the guy's like, "Oh well, I think we'll just give you random people the complete version of a game." Then it's like that's not how you do business.
No. Well, I mean, let me put it this way. The pilot is so unorganized that there are people in GameStop who don't know the pilot is going on.
You mean in local stores here?
Not necessarily, no.
Okay.
Can't really go any further than that.
Okay.
But there are people who don't even... There are people higher ups in GameStop who don't even know this is happening. That's how badly thought out it is.
All right. At MSU Hitman. Is that 2 in a row? Do we allow that in the CU podcast? 2 questions in a row. What trends has at Pixel Sickle been seeing with his customers? Desperate for current gen games or going to older?
This is what I've sort of noticed. I mean, okay, so the trend right now is Nintendo 64. That's all I get calls for. I mean, well, it's not the only thing I get calls for, but I get multiple calls a day for it. And it's for all the popular titles. That's not exactly interesting or exciting news, but that is what is currently hugely popular in the sort of retro market. The other thing is with newer systems, I'm seeing a lot of people frustrated at the lack of titles. People who bought their systems and are wondering where all the games are. And I mean, I keep telling them, I have a PS4, but I knew when I bought it that, I mean, buying early, especially with these recent generations, is not the best move. You don't start seeing a flood of games until like the third year of these systems. I see people who are greatly displeased with their Xbox Ones. I see people who are buying PS4s faster than Xbox Ones, but are still coming back to me fairly unhappy with their PS4s. I am starting to get a lot more calls for Wii U's. And people who want Wii U's. And I don't think that the Wii U is ever going to hit what it needs to hit. But I think people who really just want a system where they can go and get like 4 or 5 games they really want to play, whether alone or with their friends, they're kind of going, okay, I want the Wii U. Because for me, the PS4 is fine. I'm getting a lot of good indie titles on it and stuff that I like to play. But that's not what most people are buying PS4s for.
You don't need a PS4 for indie titles. That's the whole point. Yeah.
No, I don't. But I mean, it's fine for me because it's easy and convenient. I got fucking shit for the computer thing, but like I just don't care. I want to play on a console. That's what I want to do. So that's fine for me. But people who are looking for like these AAA titles, we're still getting games that are cross-platform between generations. So they're upset about how slow it is for people to move into for games to move into this current generation, and it's because no one I think sees the point in buying these new systems. So they're staying with their PS3s and their 360s, and as long as people continue to buy PS3s and 360s, we're going to get cross-platform games, which means you're never going to get the full potential out of your new system.
Yeah, we're talking about Xbox 360. It's going to be 10 years old later this year.
Yeah,
And it's still going to be games coming out for it.
and I am seeing, and this kind of makes me happy, I'm seeing a pretty solid, I'm seeing an increased interest in portable, beyond the normal popularity of the 3DS. People are even asking for Vitas again, even though the Vita's basically, I mean, I have one, I like it, but I mean, it's fucking dead in the water, and I can admit that. But I'm not just talking about Vitas or 3DSs. I'm talking regular DSs. Game Boy Colors, I can't keep them in stock. Game Boy Advances, can't keep them in stock. If something like a Neo Geo Pocket Color even approaches the door, it's fucking gone. Portable seems to be really big now.
Simplicity, my friend.
Right, and I think that's what it is. People want something that they can put in the pocket or sit up, plop down on the couch, turn it on, and play.
This is a two-part question at Jeer Kane. Where do you think the stereotype of gamers hating sports and/or sports games, not all of them, of course, stem from? And then why are fans of sports games looked down upon at times? I think this is fairly recent. I'm going to say, between the last 10 years. When I was growing up, it was almost synonymous or almost required. At least every kid I knew had at least one or two sports
Even
games.
if it was an arcadey one like NBA Jam. But like
every kid played Tecmo Bowl on the NES or ice hockey or Blades of Steel.
When I'd go over to my buddy's house after the Super Nintendo came out, we would alternate rounds between NHL like 94 and Mortal Kombat.
Sure. I think what happens is with the internet and social media, these differences get magnified. And I'm not going to get into tribalism, but this is tribalistic thoughts, is that if you're into sports, you must hate games, or if you're a gamer, you can't like sports. And of course, that's not true. But people that have these common interests or thoughts band together and then find people with similar interests more easily with the internet. And so I think that cuts off their mind to new ideas or being susceptible to other experiences. So maybe if you would never pick up a sports game and want to play it, you find others, instead of taking a chance and playing a sports game, you'll find others with the same beliefs, and then it's an echo chamber, or vice versa. It's just a strange question to me because I can't imagine video games without having sports games. Without sports games, I don't think you have video games would be a hell of a lot less interesting. You have a hell of a lot less people playing games. It doesn't make any sense.
I'm not much of a sportster, but I'll buy a FIFA every couple of years. I will definitely buy a baseball game every few years. Shit. Back when they released college hoops games, I love college basketball. I'd buy a college basketball game. I'm not a huge sports fan. The thing is, I think part of, at least as someone who works retail, I think one of the reasons that sports games are so frowned upon now is simply the glut of them and the rate that they come out.
But there's always been a glut of sports games, and they always came out once a year, going back to the early 90s.
It's true. I mean, if you look in like an SNES catalog, I mean, you're going to find so many what I call vanity sports titles, like Sterling Sharp's End to End and Troy Aikman Football.
There was multiple football franchises on the Super Nintendo. It wasn't just Madden.
I think it starts though with the PS2 and the Xbox, and the fact that everything got more popular then. Video games in general got more popular. I think more hardcore gamers took issue with these people buying systems, because there are people who buy systems almost entirely for sports games, which is fine,
or for Call of Duty or whatever,
which is fine. I mean, whatever floats your boat.
But why get upset at them?
No, I think it's just I think it's just the like I said, the amount of them. You walk in and to a store, say like ours, and we have all our PS2 games out front, and you see all the sports titles in stacks. And then you look at the Super Nintendo, and it doesn't seem so bad because I've got them in the back. And I still don't have as many sports titles because video games weren't as popular back then. But I think some people look at them as just trash that builds up over time.
You're thinking of older ones versus... I look at this question as just modern times about someone that just plays FIFA. Let's say there's people that just buy their Madden and then buys their baseball game every year, and that's what they play.
Sure. Like I said, that's totally fine. And like I said, I agree. I buy sports games on occasion too. And like I said, it was synonymous with gaming when I was younger. I'm just saying, I think the glut of all these old sports games as things get more popular is part of why people get so weird about them.
I just think it's the whole jocks versus nerds thing that's now come around again.
No, that could be it. But you gotta remember also that could be enhanced by the fact that in the past there wasn't a lot of jocks playing video games. So when we bought the sports games, it was what we were into. Now, like I said, you have a lot of people who will buy a system just for sports games, as opposed to people who would buy the sports games and Street Fighter and Mario and have like a more diverse collection. I'm not saying it's right, or I'm not saying it's right, not, but I'm just saying I think that's why.
No, you do whatever you want. You're an adult. I mean, it's funny that you see you see these athletes. Well, I mean, athletes are playing
Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, they play Mortal Kombat with Conan O'Brien, or they play sports games. They'll play, as themselves. It's just funny to see stuff like that. So, video games are for everyone.
There's room for everyone.
This is at Emperor Caesar 12. Have you guys traded away or sold any games you don't play anymore, but want to play again later? Any regrets? Yeah, I sold my Nintendo games and console when I was probably 94, 95 to Funkoland, probably.
You have them all again. I brought it up earlier in the podcast. I regret selling all my imports. I regret greatly selling off my Genesis collection to move out here. And if there are any, I'm really cutting down my NES collection, not regretting a lot of it, but I do regret selling all of my Dragon Warriors.
Aw.
Yeah.
I have an extra Dragon Warrior 1.
Well, I have a Dragon Warrior 1 that still has my mom's save data on it, and I have an extra Dragon Warrior 1, but I don't have 2, 3, or 4 anymore.
Yeah, I regretted selling my Nintendo games, but it was one of those things where it's just like, oh well, I'm not playing it, and played it like in 5-6 years, and now I'm PC gaming, and I wasn't even playing my Super Nintendo. I probably sold my Super Nintendo stuff around the same time too. I got PC gaming and good old Sega Saturn for Fire Pro Wrestling 6-Man Scramble from Electronics Boutique. I still don't know how Electronic Boutiques just get import games in the mall. That always was strange to me.
They just did for. That was just a thing they did for a short period of time.
Yeah. This is from Tone Cone, which is a funny name. In 20 years, will the retro quote-unquote market still have ultra-rare games? It's hard to imagine a little Samson from this generation.
It's not.
You already have people scoping out what's the rare game on the Wii. Hell, DS and 3DS. They're identifying the rare games. The problem is that those games aren't interesting for the most part. They're never going to have any sort of following, like a Magical Chase or even a Stadium event. So they're never going to have the story behind them. They're just going to be games that were shovelware or really weird titles that were released with like a weird sponsor on them or something that got limited. Or
yeah. You're acting like this is new, though. I mean, the majority of the rarest games for the Nintendo are fucking shit. I mean, you've got the good late Taito releases and stuff like that. I mean, I think if you continue to use the Wii as an example, you're going to have things like Pandora's Tower, Xenoblade Chronicles, and what was it called? There's going to be some good ones, but yes, you're right.
A lot of bad ones.
A lot of it's going to be.
It's going to be those ones that I used to see at the flea market in New Jersey in 2008 when you couldn't give them away, like they were just brand new shovelware. That people won't care about unless you're a really weird collector 20 years from now. But guess what? I can't picture there being completionist Wii collectors in the future. There'll be a few. But it's not like you're going to be hunting. It's not like Portland Retro Gaming Expo 2030 is going to have a bunch of Wii games out for sale with people diving through them to complete their collection. I do not see that happening.
I've changed my mind on that. Simply working where I do, I have people who will buy any shit for the PlayStation because it's considered rare or uncommon in their new and burgeoning collecting scene.
PlayStation and Wii are two vastly different systems historically, and
only by date. It's still shovelware and crap that they're buying and calling rare.
No, but the Wii was I guess the quote unquote casual system that, in terms of exclusive games that matter, or it's like the N64 library. You know what I mean? So I mean, it's going to be one of those things where, and the Wii has a ton of games on it too. It's not like the N64 library is 250. There's like over 1,000 games in the Wii. I think it's like 1,700, 1,500. Someone in the comments is going to tell me how many Wii games came out. It's a lot of games. That are garbage. You know, like in terms of percentage wise, we're talking garbage games. We're talking how many fucking bowling games you need. You know, like that's what it's going to be.
I feel like time will change everything.
And plus, they don't display it nice. They're all just white.
It doesn't matter. It's going to be who grew up with it. It's going to be how attached to it were they nostalgically.
Do you see kids being attached to the Wii the way we were to the NES, Super Nintendo? Honestly?
Kids are fucking weird, man. In 20 years, everything... time removed from time, it's going to... I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying that, yes, I do think that there probably will be Wii collectors.
You know what it's going to be? It's going to be people trying to go back and capture those apps they were playing when they were 3 years old on their phone. That's what we're going to see 20 years from now. Well, I hate to say it. It's scary to think about, but that's what it's going to be.
That's terrifying.
All right. This is from at Console Key. What do you think is justified for a game to have a re-release or a remake? I think I'm going to go with the Frank on movie remakes, where the first version of the movie, or in this case game, was a misfire, or it was so far in the past and you can update it with the technology that you couldn't do it originally sufficiently enough. And to me, those are the only two. At least to me, that would get me interested. You know what I mean?
I'm going to divorce it from the movie thing. I'm going to say my answer is largely never.
Largely never, okay.
Not a solid never. There are some games that, could have had bad frame rates that were considered classics and would benefit from an update, a graphical overhaul. But in my experience, and I covered it in DuckTales, but honestly, I just don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's needed. I don't think rarely it improves anything.
I would argue, though, that DuckTales Remastered was a reimagining and not a remake, since they changed so much.
It was barfing.
That was an average game you reviewed.
No, I think it wasn't bad. No,
I think this is a strange question, though, just because when you look at the history of video games, there's usually just been sequels of games that have come out every 3 years.
Yeah.
Even the Elite games, the latest Elite games is not a remake. It's more just like the next Elite game, even though it is kind of a. You know what I mean? Like, so they're never almost phrased as a remake unless it's like Halo remastered.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then it's sort of like, okay, it's the same game and now it's a fresh coat of paint. It's not necessary, but people want it. You know what I mean? Like, it's not to me that's still not justified unless you want to play multiplayer, and you know what I mean? But
and by the way, I mean, DuckTales is probably one of the better remakes I've seen.
Barf Tales.
But things like, I mean, for example, like I don't need to see the God of Wars from PS2 slightly upgraded on PS3.
Yeah,
I don't need to see God of War 3 from the PS3 slightly upgraded for the PS4. That's where it starts to look like the movie industry to me, where we just have no ideas anymore, and we're just going to turn this crap out.
That's exactly what it is. They know they're going to cut a profit with a minimal input of money and time.
DuckTales wasn't for me, but you know what? It looked like the cartoon, and for people who didn't have a lot of experience with the original, it was probably a great game. So, that's okay, but honestly, I'd just rather not see remakes at all. Give me something new.
At Pete Scarrett, for the first consoles you ever owned, Pat and Ian, what were the first games you got for them? All right. Well, mine are known because I did a Chris's video a few years back that when I got my Nintendo, it was a version with Super Mario Brothers. It was that set, and then my uncle, for some reason, got me Ikari Warriors and Spy Hunter. And then shortly thereafter, the next year, I believe, my father bought me Top Gun because he loved the Top Gun movies, so it was really for him. And then, still perplexing to this day, Double Dribble. As a kid, I never once shot a basketball. I didn't watch any basketball on TV. So my father visited recently, and I actually asked him that, hey, Dad, I played baseball as a kid. You never bought me a baseball game on Nintendo. I liked hockey. You never bought me a hockey game. Why Double Dribble? And he's like, you know what? I have no idea why I bought it for you. He had no response, which was actually, it was almost like the only answer.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what are you going to say? I'm a bad parent, doesn't know what my kid likes? You know, like, so those were really the first run of games I got, I'd say, within the first year, were like those games.
Maybe someone told him it was popular. Maybe it was on sale.
But at least Spy Hunter was the game I played. It was like the original arcade game I liked, and either he remembered that and told my uncle, you know what I mean? So at least for Spy Hunter, that was one I loved as a kid. So like that one
For
was good.
for me, at least for my NES, it was which was the I believe the first system I owned. It was Mario, Duck Hunt, Clue Land, and Red Racer maybe, and then the following year, somewhere in there, Mickey Mouse Capade and RC Pro-Am.
That's a nice mix.
Those are the games that I remember owning initially for my Nintendo, and I loved every one of them.
Now keep in mind though, back in the late '80s, when Nintendo games, that rentals were getting big, and so didn't matter what games you first had. I'd say by '88, rental places were huge in my area at least. So I was renting games almost every weekend.
My parents would rent me probably a game, probably 2 times a month. They'd rent me a game.
Sure,
you know,
something like that.
but I would only get a game, like a game. I would only own a game like birthday and Christmas.
Same with me. So yeah, so I only owned, they're right up there. My original games, I had some of them at least. I think I owned the maximum was like 13, 14 Nintendo games. Was all I ever owned as a kid. But
rentals were abundant and great back
borrowing
then.
from my friends.
Yeah.
And playing over your friend's house.
See, we talked about that on, I believe, the last podcast. Like, borrowing and, lending today is nothing. But, man, I can't tell you. I mean, my street was packed with kids. I can't tell you how many times we'd be outside, and then, the day's coming to a close, and we're about to go in and eat dinner and play some games and do our homework and go to bed. And it's like, well, what do you have? I have Rampage. Well, I've got Contra. Oh, you want to swap for a couple days? Yeah, I mean, it was just... As kids, we made do, and we didn't feel this need, I think, like a lot of gamers do now, to constantly go out and buy all this new shit all the time. If I could only put my mindset back then, that would be great.
And lastly, from at Sir Stack, there's a new Maya the Bee movie coming out. Thoughts?
I like Maya the Bee. Maya the Bee is fucking timeless.
Who's that friendly little bee playing oh so happily? Buzzing here and buzzing there, busy buzzing everywhere. Maya loves and Maya cares. I don't remember the rest of the song, but it's Maya the Bee.
I hate it when you sing.
I know. Maya the Bee was interesting because along with Dave the Gnome and like Belle and Sebastian were the foreign cartoons from Europe, and then we redubbed them over. Yeah,
Maya the Bee was really big on. I think it was before Nick Jr., but it was like when Nickelodeon would still do
Belle and
the kid
Sebastian,
stuff.
Maya the Bee, David. No, these were.
And my brother and I watched it all the time. I mean, I loved Maya the Bee.
Maya the Bee was fun.
It was funny because I didn't realize how big it was until I got older, and I think one day I just
huge in Germany, right? Germany.
I was like, it was one night I was up late, and I was like, oh, Maya the Bee. And I searched it, and it was like, holy fuck, this has a massive following in Germany. I think it even had games for the DS.
Really?
Game Boy Color for sure. Or Game Boy Advance, I think, for sure. But maybe DS too.
I miss that era of Nickelodeon but actually most of the stuff I watched were like the foreign cartoons, like Little Prince. The Little Prince.
You know what I loved?
In outer space, we'll catch a shooting star and sail away. Belle and Sebastian was fantastic. It was a serial. It was just like how Cities of Gold, where it was a continuing saga every week. Belle and Sebastian. And when you were a kid, you could follow that as a kid.
I proposed to Vonnie with a copy of Little Prince. I loved Eureka's Castle. That wasn't foreign, but I just loved the puppets on that shit. I love puppets.
I got a little bit too old to appreciate it. I mean, Pinwheel was my shit. I never watched Sesame Street. I was a Pinwheel kid.
I know you were a couple of years older than me, but I was too old probably for Eureka's Castle.
You were too old for Eureka's Castle, too.
But my love of like puppetry and stuff, I watched.
It was amusing. I remember being amusing with what were the two weird things?
Yes, I don't remember their names.
Orange things. Yes. They were brother and sister.
I loved their voices. I can still hear them.
Queasel and Quazzle, whatever the hell.
Quagmire and something.
Okay, I was close. I was on the right. Then you had the dragon. That was cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, we're off topic.
Pinwheel spinning around. All right, guys. We have a podcast Patreon. Check it out if you want. We're going to be at Too Many Games, June 26th to 28th. Or 24th to 26th. It's the last weekend of the month in Oaks, Pennsylvania. I'm tired. It's been a pretty good CU podcast.
It's been a long one.
It's been two and a quarter hour almost.
We've had a couple long ones in a row.
I don't know if that's good or bad. We're losing it. The burrito shop is closed, unfortunately. So I'm out to know on my arm. for sustenance.
I'll eat my knees.
Your bony knees.
Yes.
Well, you've already eaten 2 IPAs. Jesus.
Yeah, small ones. It's not like these are the big ones. These equal what I normally drink.
Whatever you need to tell yourself to make yourself feel better about it.
It's the same amount of ounces.
All right, for Ian Ferguson, I'm Pat Contry. Take care, everybody.
Bye.